Yo, welcome back everyone, Tier 2 Talk. It's been a while, Dweg, and what better way to kick things off than with Trav, the return after the RMRs
Heyo.
and whatnot. So I guess first question we should be asking, how you doing, Trav?
I'm doing fantastic. I've had a lovely morning of eating a crumpet like a good British person should do. I very much enjoyed the RMRs, covering some quality teams making it. We saw the rise of Sprout, and we saw the arrival of Game Legion, which I'm very excited to talk about.
I just want to jump in here, Ryan, for a
Oh.
sec and just say I'm going to be interested to talk about the Sprout discussion, Trav, because I did throw you under the bus a little bit in the previous show of overhyping Sprout in the open quals, but
Right.
maybe they've repaid themselves at the
Okay.
RMR.
Gotcha.
So
That was going to be something I was going to bring up, actually, because I do remember that exact conversation happening. And I thought I'd be here to stir the pot a little bit, but he's got there already with the apology a little bit. So,
yeah,
all right.
gotta be honest.
Yeah, fair enough. You know, a bit defeat and whatnot. I guess we can really. I don't mind where we start, gents. I'm pretty open. I think if you want to, maybe we start with the America one because I think that's going to be the one we spend the least time on, and then we'll like kind of loop back around to the EU ones. So for those that didn't know, the way the RMRs work, we had 4, if I'm not mistaken, 2 in Europe, 1 in America, 1 Asia Pacific, all given different slots and what have you. Or do you want to start with the Asian one? I think. Because that
Probably
really,
start Asia.
we
Yeah, I was gonna
really
start with
won't have
Asia.
much
Start
like
at
to
the
talk
best one.
about. Yeah, well, okay.
GG How International,
Yeah,
the greatest team of all time.
mate, it's a bit gutting. It's a bit gutting. I'm not gonna lie. So we'll have a little chat about this one. I'll bring it up for everyone at home to see now. Here we are, right? I think for us here, Dweg, you made this point in the Twitch chat literally as I was making it, when me and Trav with Jay. I think the only thing we'd like to see as an improvement from this tournament is more teams in the RMR. The slot amount is fine. 2 contender status teams, I think that's quite deserved. You know, we always have an IHC, we always have an Aussie team that are making it into the RMR, but we actually had some pretty sick teams this event that we miss out on. If I go through the qualifiers individually, we have NKT, Araft, Mongols, all pretty respectful teams in the Asian region. In the Chinese qualifier, you've got Tyloo, Wings Up, Ling Vision. In the Middle Eastern, I think NASA is a team that we all would have thought maybe.
Other one, really.
And in this one here, maybe like Encore or whatever. But again, it's like for us, maybe more slots. But this RMR was actually quite a joy to watch. The casting and everything was so sick.
Yeah, well, I can
I
start
agree.
straight away and just say, like, because I'm from this region, I used to follow a lot of the minors, and you think about how the minors used to be back in the day, 8 teams, 2 teams to always go through. So I don't think Asia Pacific at this moment of time deserves more spots to go to the major, but I think it deserves more spots to be at the RMR itself, to be increased to 8 teams. I mean, I remember you used to have like MVP, PK, the Korean guys that used to come over, Team Wolf, the Indians. You used to have Scars and Absolute, like the Japanese. Like, unfortunately now, because the slots are just so small, we don't even get a chance to see what like some of the outer regions are going to be like. So overall, as an event, I actually got to see quite a bit of it from like my Twitter, just from like what was happening on the feed. I didn't get to watch many of the games. Other than when I was waking up in the morning and like had it on in the background when I was prepping for the EU point of view. I'm surprised about Rare Atom. I really thought they were going to be going through, and they didn't. Greyhound with Vexite on LAN impressed me quite a lot, and for IHC, I don't think there was any surprise that they went through.
No, I mean, I actually are like the aim gods, aren't they? I mean, like they've got some good strats, but I tell you what, their aim is a terrifying factor about that roster. I've got to say, for Atom, I agree. I'm very disappointed. I mean, I covered them a little bit in the ESL Challenger Valencia. I love what they did. Mercury and Mosier, I thought this team was an absolute guarantee on almost to make the RMR after they got through the open qual. Of course, as you say, teams like Wings Up maybe deserved maybe to be like a 6 or 8 team RMR. You could have teams like Wings Up there, and maybe they could cause a problem after they did okay at Melbourne, for example. But yeah, Rare Atom, after what I've seen from them recently, I thought they were going to be good. The fact they didn't make it and we didn't get those lovely pink purple stickers, I've got to say, is a big disappointment to me because I wanted to see them improve, and I felt like that really wasn't much improvement. Like, and for them, where do you go from here? Like, now I remember we're going to speak about it later, but of course with Tyloo not making it through the open qual, there are some players available. Like, do you go for a player like Bentet maybe to replace Advent? Like, do you want Bentet to IGL? It's a weird off the cuff one,
Yeah.
but I think it might be worth a try.
Yeah, the thing is though, is like, do you want to after doing well in the Challenger? Like, it might just be
I
the one
know.
events.
Yeah.
I do feel for the Rare Atom crowd, because there was actually quite a lot of them. There was a little spot of about 20, 30 of them. They had the Rare Atom flag. You could see they were trying to get really behind them. And even like the talent team, I mean, this was expected. Hats on the analyst desk was something very new. Obviously, ex-pro used to play with the Greyhound lot. I say ex-pro, he is still a pro. He's just looking for a team. But this was a great insight for him to get on. Funny enough, actually, me and Hats worked a broadcast together in 2016 or 2017 at like a local LAN. That he ended up winning the LAN, I'm pretty sure. But he just like came on during a couple of like games when there were other teams playing. So he's got a very small amount of broadcast experience. I think Malta's even done some like analyst work in the past too. So it's nice to see like some of the pros get on the desk. It's not something that we get in the European broadcast that often, especially active pros.
I was gonna say, I think that was something that we pointed out as well, right? How sick this whole event was in terms of the outcome of production.
Better crowd than Pro League.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's always cool to have these RMRs, and if we could do it for Europe, I wonder if there would be like any talk of having the RMRs done in Europe, even if it was closed space.
Like for the Aussie,
like kind,
you mean?
yeah, no, for EU, and have like
I see
like
what you mean.
open
Okay,
up like a crowd for the RMRs, right? Because obviously the players are in booths, so it's going to be slightly different. Like the workaround is going to be very, very different. But I'd like to have seen that. I think that would be a pretty cool idea. Maybe someone's already thought about it. Maybe for BLAST, the cogs are turking.
I seem to remember you had like the ESL South Europe events, which used to be like the qualifier for like the ESL Global Challenge, and they were in like a small sort of studio with a crowd, so maybe something like to that sort of level. But then at the same time, you probably need quite a big facility with that many teams if you're going to run RMR A and RMR B at the same venue.
Yeah,
unless you split them.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that's something they do, is they split them, right? And they say like RMR A's like in the east side of Europe, RMR B's in the west side of Europe.
Yeah, that'd actually be pretty cool.
And then like you can choose which one you go to. Maybe there's like slots for the weekend or whichever one's closest. I think it'd be pretty cool. And especially for like maybe this RMR as well, having the main event being in Rio. I think it's safe to say a lot of us here, if not all of us, aren't going to be exactly flying out to Rio to watch the event in person. So.
In London, maybe go. I saw an esports bar in London actually the other week, so maybe we can get together. Get the boys on.
The organising happening. It might have to happen.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the.
See you there.
Oh, nice. There we go already. Anyone in the Twitch chat? Yeah, rock up, mate. Rock up. No. Right,
I'll give you Ryan's address.
Whoa. Hold on. Let's talk about the American RMRs a bit I guess as well.
Okay.
I think a very different setup in terms of the broadcasting talent there and sort of how the event went, but as well, I like to say that this event, a pleasure to watch. Scrawny and Lawn does an amazing job this event. Go on the desk, brilliant stuff from her. And I was just checking literally recently at how many events she's done in recent times. Like, she's come back, she's killed it, man. Maui and Mahone on the desk as well, is always fun to see as the analysts. Let's talk about the teams maybe a little bit more, right? We'll have a look at the Swiss stage to begin with. Maybe have a pay attention to the top half. What do we think, gents? Anything in particular?
For me, I'm disappointed in Pain. I thought they would make it. Zevi and Skulls have been my two favourite upcoming Brazilian players for a very, very long time. I say very long time, basically the whole year. It's not very, very long time, but yeah, they've been absolutely ridiculous, and I really thought they'd make it. But maybe some land jitters. I mean, it can happen for these sort of players coming through, and famously. Imperial love to be the gatekeepers of majors, it seems, at the moment, don't they? And I was sad to see Pain not make it. I think the Imperial Complexity game in that decider, by the way, was the best game in every single RMR. I absolutely loved it. I think it was an absolute perfect ending, almost a dream.
Right, well, I didn't see that game, so I might have to go back and see that.
Worth it, mate. Absolutely worth it, mate.
Yeah?
It's genuinely worth a VOD rewatch, genuinely.
All right. Yeah, I've got to be honest. I didn't watch a single game of the Americas RMR at all. If you're going off of the basis of pain, I saw them at Melbourne and I saw them win the entire event. So to not be able to make it to the major is going to be a huge step back for them. For EG, I casted them in Pro League, and I think we're starting to see the rise of EG. Obviously, we're not seeing them at the #1 where they were previously, but when you consider the idea that finally there is some success coming forward, that's got to be looked at as a good note. Even Complexity, I think they looked really good in Pro League. The idea that they're able to make playoffs when they were a team that were going like 0-5 and having a really difficult time in Europe. I think that I was even coming up with a stat that they were something like one win out of 11 best of threes in Europe the entire year, and now you make playoffs of Pro League, and you come here and unfortunately don't quite get it. They just miss out. But I guess that was down to that Imperial Complexity game right at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the decider, yeah.
I was gonna
Final
scroll
slot.
down past this and we can talk maybe a little bit more about the tiebreakers. Obviously the Imperial Pain game, very close for Pain. To knock out
geez,
Imperial
that
as
is-
well.
Yeah, there you go.
To knock out Imperial as well would have been massive for them, but that was a heartbreak for Pain, I think.
So that would have been the rematch from ESL Challenger Melbourne in an important
Yes.
game as well. So that would have been quite a good game. I mean, just knowing how close it was as well.
Yeah, and then maybe you look at the Complexity game and wonder, that was a very close bout as well. 29 rounds in the first map. You go double OT, 42 rounds in the third. Nuke was the only map Complexity were able to make it look convincing. The other one's ropey for both sides. One thing I'd like to talk about as well, maybe the top of the sheets, is Evil Geniuses, right? You can see how close the game was against Liquid, but for a side that I think has quite naturally been built into our tier 2 talk, right? In Nealon, probably Cirque as well. We've had a chat about in some
Ted rates him
episodes.
as the number 5th AWPer
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
world.
yeah. I don't know what he's smoking, but yeah. Obviously, you have Hext coming in from the EGPA side, right? Or the
Carpe
one of the,
diem.
yeah, the
CD.
the CD side.
yeah.
Sorry. And it's nice to see him jump into the action, and for them to get the slot. Okay, sure, it's a bit of a heartbreak that they don't beat Liquid. However, that's a right result for EG off of the back of a pretty shoddy Pro League run in recent times.
I mean, you can
Yeah,
even
they've
look at
been
it.
good.
Oh, go on, Trav.
No, I was going to say, like, I'm really shocked. I mean, I think everyone's down on EG. Everyone's been down on EG since the very beginning when they've been naming their rosters weirdly. Like, don't know whether PA or CD, don't know whether which one's playing which event. They wanted them all to be called Evil Geniuses at one point. I mean, the organization felt like a little bit of a mess, but I've got to say, props to them for sticking with it and actually bringing up a player from one of their other rosters and getting success with it. That's the big thing. Sure, Hex had a bit of a shitter, unfortunately, against Liquid. I think he went -30, poor guy. But they'd already qualified by then, so you can forgive that. And I've got to say, Nealand finds some really impressive, intuitive timings whenever I watched him play on this roster. I think having that sort of leader, even though he's not a known big-time IGL, I think it's really impressive for this team. And with Cirque and Breeze, if they're going to find some NRG form, then with Automatic performing as he always does, you never know, right? It's pretty good.
I mean, one thing I could add about Nealon is I've seen and casted so many of his teams and games
Same.
from 2019, 2020, and he was always one of those guys that got a lot out of his players. I think he used to make Norbert look insane on that K23 side, and he used to pick up some really good talents. I mean, even Fame, I remember him on SG Pro with Senator and Key saying he looked like the next big thing, but then he comes into K23 and he does really well. So it's the idea that you've set a team up, because they were always top 30 consistently for quite pretty much all the year. So the idea that he leaves his comfortable zone, he goes over to fucking North America to play with EG when we have no idea what Breeze is going to be like, no idea what Cirque's going to be like. He's probably got all the details. I would imagine we've got these academy teams or the second teams. We're probably going to bring some players up. We maybe think about bringing Hext into the lineup. I'm sure he would have been aware of the climate and what would have been on the table. But the idea that he makes a massive move all the way to North America and now qualifies for the major, that's got to be such a good feeling for him.
I was going to say as well, big props to him for leaving that roster, right? Like, he very easily could have stuck around, maybe got like
Definitely.
a different offer or whatever
Yeah.
in and around tier 2. Instead, maybe the money incentive's looking pretty good. I mean, I'd hope so for a move like that to roll the dice and to
For
go
sure.
across the world and whatever. He's done a really good job, and I hope he gets the respect that he deserves. Something I'd like to say as well, Vorborg being a coach, I think I slammed him a little bit in the last episode or the episode before, Josh, about saying basically, mate, I don't know, like, you've brought in Malik as your coach, what's the point of Vorborg? Seems to be they've got that completely under wraps, like all the coaching problems that I thought they were going to have or whatever. They've done a really good job this event. Really, really good stuff to see that that EG have pulled through. I think any other sides maybe we'll have a little chat about. I don't know. Is there anyone in particular, or you want to jump to the EUs?
I was just wanted to say that I think 0 Nation, after again an organisation that has basically been a bit cursed with recent results and recent, just in general, I think in the past they've added the Godsent core. They did well at ESL Challenger Valencia. Then they didn't play a thing. They just basically went AWOL for a while, and I thought, how would that affect them going to the RMR? They're back. It's some of the tack old magic we saw from back in the day.
Yeah.
They join Imperial, right? It's poetic that Taco, Cold, and the Imperial guys have made the major again, and I'm really impressed with that. And I'll finish it off as well before we move on to EU and say 9Z incredibly impressed because they've got two very new young players. And I think NQZ's only like 17, and he's made his first major. Incredible start to a career.
Yeah, I remember seeing him in that Rubek Cup when they were playing in EU, and he's pretty good. He's not a bad player at all. I'd like to even say for ATK, I know that we had him on the show previously, Ryan. One thing they always said was that they struggled against the Brazilians in the finals, didn't they? That was one of the conversations where they were like, fucking pain, like they get us every time. And then what is their last game that they have to play in the 5th round of Swiss? It's pain. And it's like, that is pain for ATK. The fact that even they've said it themselves when they came on here, they struggle against pain in best of 3s, and that could be one that sort of gets you a little bit further down the line, even to qualify for the major. But for them, they get a couple of wins. I mean, even Infinity, they were a team that that came through, which had like the Peruvians in there, and a Colombian player and a Mexican player. So that's actually really sick that at least they've made the RMR, because that region and those sort of countries don't get a massive amount of success. So if they can be like one of those teams that always come back to the RMR every single time, that would be a great piece for them.
And I wouldn't expect that they're in like all the prac groups that the rest of these teams currently sit in for America, So for them to be able to turn up, it's all expenses paid for. Sure, you get 0-3'd, but you're in Europe, so that whole time you're going to be spending against European teams and trying to prac a little bit more. They 100% will be getting experience from that very trip alone. Okay, sure, they go 0-3. And the same could be said for Arctic, right, who are a team that came from the South American quali, not some big names there. And for the teams lower down, like, you've got to remember that this was done in Sweden, right, if I'm not mistaken, the American RMR.
Yeah, it was.
So,
yes, Stockholm, yeah.
So you're in a position, actually, where you're in Sweden, you're going to be pracking against EU teams, you don't have to stick to your region. This will be a big learning experience for some of the teams that don't make it. And as you said, maybe there is every chance that we see them back in, 6 months' time when we're talking Paris Major and for Blast and whatever, that these RMRs, they're going to come back and play again. I think we can just jump straight to Europe now, though, gents. I don't think there's much else to talk about. I think RMR A. We'll start with RMR A because I think there's a lot more to talk about with the Tier 2 side of things. Obviously, we're going to steer clear maybe of some of the bigger names that we knew were going to go through. I would like to say one quick thing, although maybe not so much Tier 2. NIP making 3-0, having made recent changes to IGLing. Quite nice to see that they kind of run the EG ropes, right? In the sense that there's a lot of structural change, and they make it 3-0. They make it look easy. Team below them, however, I'd like to kickstart with them. Sprout 3-1. What a brilliant event from those gentlemen.
Yeah, I think they could be very happy with the performance they've put in. And for Sprout as an organization, they were a team that, I can't remember the last time they were at a major. I think we were talking about
Boston.
it actually, Boston 2018.
Boston.
That was one of the things that we were talking about on the broadcast, because we were thinking, was it Atlanta or was it Boston? Like that is significant time ago. So the idea that you've got like a newer lineup, you've kept a lot of youth. I mean, when I looked at the roster changes for Sprout, the first thing that I looked at is like, you've got rid of your experienced guys. Spiddy's gone, Rouse is gone. that might take time to be able to see the results instantly. But to be able to qualify to the major is going to be a very high achievement for them. And they looked okay. I mean, we casted them in the game against Spirit, and I didn't think that I was going to see a massive amount from Sprout, if I'm going to be honest. But overall, clean performance, and they deserve to go through.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I despite my meme on Twitter, which Refresh had a go at me about, I will
I
say
missed
that
that.
I.
What?
Yeah, get
Do
into
you wanna-
that, mate.
Yeah,
do you wanna-
keep
do you wanna
going,
get
keep going,
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
going.
You'll find it.
I'll,
You'll
I'll
find
dig
it.
it up.
Okay.
I'll dig it up.
But yeah, like genuinely, I love this team. I've loved it since the very beginning. Honestly, like when they added Laurenex, what I saw from him first, like these these tier 2 cup, the ESL Challenger League stuff like that, I just absolutely adored the way he played the game, how aggressive he was, and how he makes it happen. And you forget that he, as a young Romanian talent who incidentally is the first of 2 Romanians ever to make the major, as we'll get onto IEM later, is unbelievable in the fact that Stare goes sometimes unnoticed because everyone's talking about Laurenex, and Stare can sometimes be just as good and just as impactful. And I absolutely love watching that duo play. Refresh has brought an air of calm to the roster. That they make some mistakes. Don't get me wrong. I casted this ridiculous clutch that Amster got, which was 1v4 when he was already like 15 HP in that Sprout bait game. So they do make errors in afterplant sometimes, and they lose some silly rounds. But if they can iron that sort of stuff out, what I'm seeing is a team that actually genuinely deserves to be legends. And I think that while I don't think they'll make it into playoffs, I think that's definitely a step too far.
Yeah.
This stage is where I think they would have gotten if they were in the challenger stage, if you get what I mean. I think they would have made it through the
Okay.
challenger
Yeah.
stage and made it through. So yeah,
All right.
I got to say as well, Slacks has been, Slacks can blow hot and cold, but he's been very consistent recently, and I think that is also a big help to how they got through.
Yeah. The issue that I have with this team is like LAN experience. I mean, that was something that we were even talking about in the broadcast.
Agreed.
Refresh has only just like been into tier 1 with Heroic, and he's got more maps on LAN than the 4 of these guys do combined. So this is a major debut for Slacks, major debut for Stare. Even Launix was making his RMR debut, let alone a major debut.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of young, new players. I mean, even though Stare's been a part of this lineup for quite a while, you do have a lot of young, new players to this sort of level. So to see them qualify for the major, personally, I don't think they'll do fantastically. I mean, even their online results, I was not a crazy believer in. Like even your first open qualifier, I think they took on a brand new Ecstatic team, and nobody else in the best of ones before that impressed me massively. You have a look at what happens in the Rotterdam closed qualifiers. They lose to Entropic and they lose to Eternal Fire. They lost to Sangul in the Blast qual as well. So you can see the inconsistencies, but sometimes it's the one event. And for them, they looked good at this RMR. So I'm keen to see them at the major.
I think the next team down the list maybe we can talk about is Spirit. As a team that I would argue still not quite consistent enough in tier 1. We'll have a look at their team. Wonderful is a name I think I would like to talk about a little bit, just as an individual. I think I can bring up his Liquipedia without breaking what's shown on screen. Here we are. He is 17 years old, very, very young player. Not to mention, he was in and around some pretty rough teams, Project X, Trasco, Hellraisers. Never really seen him kind of blow up to the occasion. This event, massive. That yet again, it's a team that, I mean, sure, you have, your Choppers, your Patsies, your Sirens, your Magics. All of these players have kind of like had their time in tier 1. This is another team that haven't really made the breakthrough, and this event are really surprising me yet again, going 3-1.
Yeah, I don't know about Spirit. Like for them, because I casted their game against Cloud9 in the 4th place decider in the best of 3. And Magix and Siren were really impressive up until that point. The best of 3 against BNE, the best of 1s, it looked really good. We didn't get to see much out of them. Tropper had a mental first map of Vertigo. I think he dropped nearly 30 kills. He then went very quiet in map number 2. And then even the last map of Ancient, I still don't think we've seen a crazy amount from Wonderful, but I'm not expecting that. The idea that he is only so young, 17, it's his first RMR, it's his first taste really at tier 1, because he played at Cologne, played at EPL, and that's been it really. but he did have some really important rounds, and I think he had one of the rounds when it was like 14-13, where he got them to map point, which got them over the line in the series. So I think we are seeing some further glimpses of Wonderful, and I think just give him more time, give him another 6 months, and I think we'll see him at like 100%.
No, I agree. I mean, it's just Wonderful's just another addition, isn't it, to the plethora of talent from Ukraine in Tier 2 Orping, because you got Wrinkle on bait, who's been doing very well. It has to be said. I think they outperformed most people's expectations at this event. You have the players from the EC Kyiv roster as well. Isn't it S4 Soltovsky used to Orp? I'm not sure if he does anymore.
Yeah, they've
Sensei?
got him and Sensei. Yeah, they've got them on the
as well.
same team.
Yeah, like it's unbelievable, isn't it? Like, I mean, it'd be funny to see how that one works out in the end. But yeah, I mean, you even got someone like Roro2K, for example, who is very inconsistent and can be like can absolutely shit the bed sometimes, but still, like, it's another one to add to the list. So yeah, it's pretty impressive the fact he's got that chance on Spirit, and I think. I'm not sure this Spirit in the current form is a playoff team. I'm torn between whether to pick them for the next stage or not. I think I might lean on the lean on the side of not doing that, but I have to see when the pick'em stares me in the face, because I might change my mind.
Fair dues. B&E, always nice to see them around. I think
100%.
The hype certainly was so sick to see from those guys when they qualified for the major. The Twitter clips, everything like that, elite. Like, you love the B&E lads. I think we should definitely gloss over Gamer Legion a bit. This
gloss
is a
over?
side.
You mean not gloss over?
Sorry, yes, very much the opposite. What an event these guys have had. What an event.
I love them.
I don't think there's enough words really to describe how heroic, how meaty that run was from them. To go 3-2, sure, the scoreline doesn't look great, but your losses are to FaZe and to Spirit. You knock G2 out of the competition. You beat Bait to go 3-2. A brilliant turnaround from them. I'm stunned.
I'm just gonna give my few points on this one, because I have strong, passionate feelings about how impressed I am with them. They are the fact that Gamer Legion, let's start from the beginning. The fact that Gamer Legion have stuck in Counter-Strike through so many different rosters and through so many different, terrible results, it has to be said. I mean, they date back to the Scream Existence days, these guys. So, they've stuck around, they've stuck with it. They've kept IEM and Isaac on the roster as well. They've trusted in them. I think a year and a half they've been on the team now. They've got Shuey from Mouse NXT. They said to Shuey, and I think it's Shuey and Ash, right? They said to each other, okay, let's build the roster. Let's see what we can do with this. Let's pick up some players that we know that still have talent in the scene. Akor's been nowhere since Mad Lions, really. He wasn't that great in Mouse, in my opinion. And he's now back in what seems to be amazing form. Kios got dropped from Falcons, and Falcons didn't make the major, and he did. Look how that's turned out. And yeah, the fact that Gamer Legion weren't even officially announced, as I said, when I got a chance to cast them in the Gamer Legion bait game. My finishing touch was a team that wasn't even announced after the open qual made it to Rio de Janeiro. That's just an absolute fairy tale story, and I think it's thoroughly deserved in every way, because Shuey, everyone loves this guy. I mean, he's my Giga Chad. Fuck this Hooksy kid, like, who gives a shit? Like, Shuey's the main man for me. And I think that while they might not do great in the major itself, they deserve all this success in this short space of time.
I mean, I'll come out here and say I thoroughly underestimated what they would be like, but I don't even think that's a surprise. Like, the idea you play for, like, the quals, what are you expecting? Like, we have not seen.
They didn't even beat a great team. They didn't even beat a great team to get through to the RMR itself. They beat Forward, which is Mo and Doja's random mixed team 2-1. Like, they won 16-1. Yeah, that's what I said. They're not good. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I thought you said they were a great team.
No. They beat not a great team in Forward. Like, Mo and Doja, that's pretty much. It would have been unbelievable to see them at RMR again. And in the end, it was actually a 2-1 game. I think they won the final map 16-1. I got a chance to do that on my personal channel. That was a really fun game to do. But yeah, they absolutely run them over in the final map, and deservedly so. And the fact they've made it from there, beating a team which is an incredible opportunity. And then getting to this point, I think they tried Ralen in the third qualifier. They didn't even play the first or second qual.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were sort of all over the place, and they finally found something that clicked at the best possible time.
I mean, just to add, I mean, this is driving the story even more. The round of 32 in the open qual on the 4th one was an overtime against Apex.
Yeah.
So the idea that they could have lost to Apex in the round of 32 before they even get to the best of 3, before they even have a chance of like making it to the RMR, is wild. And even at the RMR, because I got to cast them in the G2 game, and I remember they had 7 match points against FaZe in the opening best of 1, could not close it out. They had 9 rounds in a row on their city side, didn't drop a single round against Aurora in their second Swiss. And then against Spirit, they were up 11-4 on T-side Ancient, went up 15-11, and still lost it. You then come up against a G2 that's almost made the grand final of Pro League. And there's not a lot that you could pin in the direction here of Gamer Legion that they're going to win this game. They're going to be able to do the whole thing.
Agreed.
But I was thoroughly impressed. I mean, Acor was unreal. Not only in that game, but I think in the RMR itself and the open quals. Like, we've obviously seen Acor, what he was like before Mouse, when he was on Existence, when he was on Mad Lions, how much of a threat he could be. We saw him on Mouse. I think we can leave it as that. He's now come here onto Gamer Legion, and we're seeing the Acor that we remember in the past, in the tier 2s.
Exactly.
And I think overall, they played a sound performance against G2. I think they did the basics right. That's what I think is really important in that best of 3. Was it wasn't overcomplicated Counter-Strike. It was a lot of default-heavy stuff, working the AWP of Acor, finding gaps in offensive lines, and just keeping it simple, keeping it basic, working off one another.
So agree.
It worked. It worked well. And sometimes you don't need to be out of the box. You can just play it smart, play it sensible. I noticed the way in post plants, they're not over peaking, they're not doing anything silly. It's very drilled with the basics. And I think one of the things we even spoke with in Shui in the interview after the game, because they closed it out. That was my concern when they were up against G2, is we've seen it in even the previous few games. They haven't been able to close. It has not been them getting the victories. And he was like, I've spoken to Ash. We knew before the game. We just need to slow it down and not like win the game immediately. Not try and just close it out within a round. Like, take our time. They used a lot of tactical pauses throughout that best of 3. And they deserve it. They played bloody well against G2. I've got to be honest, I didn't see them in the B8 series, so that's more on you, Trav. But I was impressed with what I saw against G2. For sure.
I think actually what you explain with, the calm sort of defaulting, doing the basics right, is a very good explanation for the bait game as well. I mean, they would have realized that the bait game is the chance. Like, they've got the best draw possible probably to make the major that in their wildest dreams they could have hoped for. Bait also going to be nervous. And unfortunately, while I say I'm very impressed with Bait, and I think they can go far in tier 2, I think that the fact that Game Legion made it is way more deserved than Bait would have ever been. Bait beat Fnatic. That's really the only one in a BO1 as well. That's really the only one you can write home about. Game Legion, as you say, FaZe, Spirit, pushed them all the way. Both teams you'd expect to make the playoffs. Some of you would probably say at the major for Spirit in Spirit's case. So. Yeah, the fact that they're the ones to make it is thoroughly deserved. And I think for me, you hit the nail on the head when you say, Shui's sort of style of calmness and calling the timeouts at the right time and that sort of stuff. Like, it really made a difference to how they kept their way through.
Yeah, sorry, not to cut you off there, Trav. I just wanted to add some of the stats. Acor against FaZe, 47 kills, 35 deaths. Acor against Spirit, 44 kills and 28 deaths. Like, just those 2 best of 1s against fucking FaZe and Spirit, we're seeing Acor unleashed. And depending on what happens at the major, like, to be honest, it's not a crazy thing if Gamer Legion go far, or if they go 0-3. I think just in general, you can see the potential that Acor has got on this lineup and how he could become one of the best players and best AWPers in tier 2, like he once was before he joined Mouse. And that's exciting for me.
Certainly.
Agreed.
I want to touch on Fnatic a little bit as well. The other 3-2 team that we saw qualify for the major. I think the bait game looked very worrying. They took FaZe to overtime. FaZe themselves, obviously a bit of a stinker this event in terms of round difference and whatnot, just however many close games they wanted. But I'm pleasantly surprised to see how well this team's doing. I think maybe it's just British pride coming through, but I wanna talk about Messi a bit, gents, because he is a player that has switched up his roles and his ethic for Counter-Strike a lot in the past few months. For those that don't know, he's taken the reins as the in-game leader for this side, and since then, his numbers have looked unbelievable. His personal stats have not been impacted. He's got 4 very capable players around him. And the scouting process done by Fnatic, I must admit, I'm pleasantly surprised about in this team as well. Fasher had a very quiet event, and I think both of us can, or all 3 of us can testify to how good he is as an individual, and this is certainly a bit of a blip from him in a stats POV. Nikodos and Roy, I do believe, are the 2 players that tops the sheets for the Fnatic side in this RMR, and Crims is very solid as well. I think that this Fnatic side have got some very, very solid pieces.
Well, I got to cast them in the series against OneWin to qualify for the major, and if I'm going to be honest, like I was talking to Jay about it before we even started the game, I put Fnatic as favorites, but I actually predicted OneWin to win 2-1. Because the way that I was addressing things is that we've seen a lot of teams at the RMR do well in other events, but not well in the RMR. And I think that's like a G2 prime example. And I was looking at the run from OneWin, and it was more impressive up until that point against a Fnatic side, which, again, Fnatic are going to be the favorites, but I thought OneWin would have just enough to be able to pull it out over the line. And Fnatic, they pulled through. It was a comfortable series from them. OneWin, like, I don't want to be like, oh, Fnatic got lucky or anything like that, because they definitely didn't. They played well. But the OneWin I saw in that best of 3 was not the OneWin I saw against Cloud9. It was not the OneWin I saw against Spirit, Forza, or G2. I think it was a very off day for the OneWin side in that last best of 3. But at the same time, that's just punishment coming through from Fnatic. And I think OneWin were making a lot of sloppy mistakes. Fnatic were capitalizing on it. And it was a comfortable series. So they deserve to go through into the major, knowing that like Fasher's making his major debut. Same for Messi. Is going to be great to see what those guys are like.
No, I agree. I've been a proponent of Fasher getting upgraded ever since he was playing, rotting in the Benelux scene in Lowland Lions, to be honest. I think like he was always a cut above in that scene. And honestly, he was a cut above in Ecstatic as well in the Lingby Vikings era. It really makes sense. And I agree with the Fnatic scouting. They've chosen the right player. And from the outside, if you looked at it and you don't follow Tier 2, you don't look at this sort of level of Counter-Strike and see what Fasher did, you'd be thinking, who is this mid-20s randomer from Netherlands, Like, you would say, he's got the weirdest control scheme of all time as well. The classic video that was posted years ago. And yeah, I think I got to say, only respect to them. They squeaked it in the end, as you so rightly say. I think OneWin was a 50-50 in my eyes as well. I'm a bit heartbroken that OneWin didn't make it for my Travis stickers, but I might have to wait another year for that one. But yeah, I think realistically, Fnatic, that they deserved it, and that team, they always seem to find a way. And Roy and Nikodos, they've got major pedigree now, like lots of major pedigree, and incredibly, as I'm sure we'll get onto later, something that I brought up in multiple pods before, Hooksy going to G2, technically the best team of the lot, is the only ex-Copenhagen Flames player not to make the major. Oh dear.
Yeah, it's definitely a point to get across. I mean, I will say I've casted Fasher for quite a long time, and I know that you're quite involved in like the Benelux region, Trav.
Little bit, yeah.
So this might rip in a little bit, but I've got to be honest. Even when I saw Fasher on Endpoint and Lowland Lions, and Diffuse Kids, I was not impressed by Fasher. Yeah. But in saying that, when he was on Lingby, you could really start to see him find his form. And that's not only in the pits, like that's against top 30 competition, against top 20 competition sometimes. And I think when he was there on Lingby and Ecstatic, it was maybe a late bloomer. But it's a very similar story to someone like Roy, who like late in his career started becoming at the peak. And I think for Fasher, he didn't impress me a massive amount early on in his career. Even the first stint on Lingby when he was there with Rylax and Nato Safix didn't impress me a massive amount. But when he went to Lingby the second time and then they went to Ecstatic, I was sold. Like I've been, charging down the mic saying that this is the best rifler Tier 2 has had in a long time. Exactly. And it's respecting the grind, Some of these players have to work for years in Tier 2 before they can show what they can. And I think he was a perfect piece to the puzzle on Lingby and Ecstatic. He was their best player by a country mile towards the end. And while maybe we might still take further time to see him on Tier 1, you can understand why they've picked him up. Of course you can.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we can get...
Do you think...
Go on.
Wait, which team were you going to go to, Retro?
I was
Guess we're
gonna
on the same page.
I was gonna go Heartbreak and head into the red, but if you wanna throw in a point quickly,
I was gonna head into the red as well. You know what? I'm gonna make a statement. Name value, Astralis are S tier. Team value, they are now a tier 2 team.
yes,
I'm sorry,
yes,
it's a fact.
I was gonna say
This team,
yeah,
There's not much
It's
debate
awful.
on that, to be honest, mate.
yeah, heartbreak, leg break. You know, it's all kicking off for Astralis here in the slums of the 1 and 3, losing to NIP, losing to Bad News Eagles convincingly as well. It was like a 16-3 on Ancient, wasn't it? And losing to Forza 2-0. What a disappointing event from them. And I think it's a perfect place to start because, as Travis says, I'm very convinced this is now a tier 2 team. And in fact, I would go ahead and say right now, Astralis really need to rethink their options. If they're picking up Device, as the rumours would suggest, then there's got to be a rebuild behind them. I'm not confident in this team whatsoever. I think we've got to wave goodbye to the old guard of Astralis. I don't think they're the right option anymore. I think this team needs a whole new rebuild. We've got some tier 1 players, but they're just not doing what is required.
I agree. I have some thoughts on this, and I'll just sort of throw them out there so you can discuss them and see how crazy I am. Astralis, firstly fuck the organization. Obviously, you can't necessarily
It's a good way to start, Travis.
yeah, I want to start it that way because config. Obviously, you can't necessarily believe it, like you can't take his twit longer as gospel. You have to understand that it's from his POV, but there's no way he would lie like about any of that stuff. Not in my eyes. Like that stuff has to be 90% the truth. So for me, for Astralis to just not have any boys with him there in that situation, I urge you to go read the twit longer. Like it's an unbelievable story that I feel awful for him about.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think firstly, if you're not going to stick with config, that's just whatever. Like realistically, that's your choice. But where do you go from here? I think Glaive's era is done. I think get rid of him honestly at this point. Zip's been playing tough roles, don't get me wrong, but I think he's been washed up for ages, and the fact he signed such a long contract at the time was baffling to me, and I think baffling to most of us. I think if you're going to take Device, you build around Blame and Device and get some youngsters, and I'm going to throw some names out there. Mister did okay. I thought he was genuinely all right in the RMR. Considering the situation he was thrust into, I thought he did quite well. Buzz is another name that is very, very highly rated among the people in the scene. Thought about that one, and I'm going to leave the rest to you guys. Maybe think about other players, maybe even Breezer if you don't go for Device, stuff like that. But for now, I'm going to leave those names out there and see where you guys go from that, because I think this is a whole new rebuild that needs to happen instantly. Maybe after BLAST Showdown, but after that for sure.
I don't know. Like, if maybe like a Fessel, like I wouldn't mind that.
Yes, agreed.
The problem I have here is like, we obviously saw the chain reaction, the fact that Copenhagen Flames got players, Masonic players left, Ecstatic got players, and it goes all the way down. You can jump up the tier 2 ladder, but to jump to the tier 1 ladder, like we're almost talking out of our ass. Do you know what I mean? Like if we're saying like, oh, Fessa should join Astralis, like because they don't have tier 1 experience and they haven't even played close to that level, it's so difficult to pull out a name of who could do it at that level. So I don't know, like you do have some good pieces, but at the same time, like obviously, okay, maybe Fessor is an option. Do you really want to break Masonic apart again, Ecstatic apart again, Copenhagen Flag? All of those orgs surely want to hold those players. They've just all made roster changes.
Exactly.
So
I think honestly they have to go European at this point, Astralis.
They'll get lynched. They'll get lynched by their fans. They're die-hard Danish supporters. They'll get lynched for finally going to EU. I don't know.
What if they did a core 3 Danish, like Lingby did, like Ecstatic? What if they did something like that?
I think that works. In my honest opinion,
fair enough.
I think I don't. Again, you can't break apart. There's so many of these teams, as you said, Josh. I think you can't break apart Ecstatic. You can't break apart your Masonics, your Copenhagen Flames. Like everyone's just made changes. Everyone's just signed into contracts. Astralis, if I'm honest with you, if they're signing Device, I don't know how much money they're gonna have left in their pockets to kind of fund the rest of the team, right? So if we're gonna bring back Device, I think Device, Blame. Do you want to keep FiReLEAGUE around? Probably not. Obviously,
no, he'll go if Device comes.
Do you think maybe are we going to bring Mister up just because he's played in that team, and then you look maybe more European, and I think there's actually some pretty decent options out there for Astralis. I'm not
Danish
happy.
Nico?
Yeah, no. I don't think he's good
No?
enough. I don't think he's good enough, honestly.
I mean, he's got tier 1 experience, and he's the only
But,
one that hasn't been on the previous roster changes.
I'm gonna sit here and say now I don't think
Okay.
it matters what Danish tier 1 talent you're gonna pick
Gotcha.
up. I think,
Alright.
quite honestly, I think you've exhausted all your options if you're Astralis. If
Just recycling.
yeah, if config isn't working, if BlameF needs to work super hard to get things going, I really don't think that if we're going to take experience as a factor into this, I don't think there's any option inside Denmark you can pick here for this side. I think you have to look at externally. I think you have to look outside of Denmark in general. I was thinking to myself a little bit, do we want to go maybe more European? You know, I think that would make a more sensible approach. If you're looking at youngsters, Chawsy's up for grabs. I know he was an AWPer on Savage, and he played rifles.
Not Chawsy.
You don't reckon so?
Not Chawsy.
I don't think he's bad at rifles. I think he was just put in a bad position on Apex. And
Regali was suggested to me the other day because he speaks Danish.
Yeah, but they've just made change. That's
yeah,
the
I don't think they can't. They can't
know.
get rid of
Yeah.
Regali.
It's hard. It's hard. I know.
It
I mean,
is,
that's
it is.
because like all these. That's what has royally fucked up Astralis by extension, isn't it? Because like all these Danish teams that
Just
they might poach from have all got brand new rosters that they want to see work out. So yeah, it's a nightmarish one. I think realistically, to make it as easy as possible for Astralis to actually make a team that they can use in events, i.e. BLAST Showdown, you keep Glaive, you keep Zip for now, you go Blame, you if you want to do Device before BLAST Showdown, you do Blame, Device, Glaive, Zip, Mister, and that's what the team you play with.
The same. Do you know what? Maybe that is just the option that Astralis run, is that you make one roster change at a time rather than try and reshuffle the whole lineup. You do one, you wait a few months, you do one, you wait a few months, because like you said, now is not the time to start a rebuild of a full rebuild with all the Danish teams just being fielded.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's enough on them.
Yeah, I think for Astralis, we've
get them out of it.
Set up
get the Deadwood out the major. Thank God. Game of Legion and Sprout. Love to see you, mates. Let's fucking go. Get the Deadwood gone. They're gone. It's about fucking time, isn't it? God,
it
God's sake.
It is. I'm with you. I'm starting to become a little bit of an Astralis hater myself. I think you've kind of like
hell yes.
You've kind of like convinced me a bit there, Trav, in what you've been saying as well. And especially after recent events, it certainly doesn't help them.
Yeah.
In any way. We've already discussed Bait 1 win a little bit, so I don't think we need to touch on them too much.
I would just say, just quickly, because we probably should get a bit of a move on.
Yeah, we do need to.
1 win had the fucking worst draw in the world.
Yeah.
They played Spirit in the first round, Forza in the second, Cloud9 in the G2 in the third, Cloud9 in the fourth, Fnatic in a fifth. Like, fuck, could you give them like
a break?
Some luck?
Yeah.
Some luck in that run. And do you know what? With 1 win, to be honest, Deco on LAN, mate, looked all right. Looked okay. Obviously, was not the same as his online, but this is the one thing you could say. Travis, Deco, and Glowing. Well, Travis and Deco never been to an overseas LAN before. Glowing literally made his LAN debut at this RMR. Flamey's got like 750 maps on LAN. He's been to fucking 3 major grand finals. Mate, he was bottling it. He's got to go, I reckon, to be honest. Like, if you're going to make roster changes for this lineup, I mean, he fucking was even... What was it, in the open qualifiers? He left the server before the round was even over.
Deco did that in a recent game as well. I think this team is a little bit emotionally unstable from what I've seen from that sort of situation. All I'll say is that I agree with you. Anything to get my boy Travis stickers. It's my only chance. Please, God. Yeah. The Counter-Strike gods, I need it. Thank you.
So yeah, about like Flamey against Cloud9 to qualify for the major, we saw 1 win getting 12 rounds on the first map and 13 on the second, and he dropped 5 frags on map 1 and 10 frags on map 2 in one of your most important games to make it to the major. And it's a CIS derby. You're looking at your veteran, and he bottom fragged in server on both maps.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought, like, obviously you're not expecting Flamey to be a star player. I understand that. But you're expecting him to hold his weight. And in these important games, you've got to get the most out of him. I will be fair and say one of the maps against Fnatic, he did well. One of the maps, he did shit as well. So, I don't know with Flamey. I was disappointed with him. And oversized jerseys, man. You see the size of those
It's
things?
like, you know the memes of like, oh yeah, you give your girlfriend your hoodie because like she's cold and it's like 10 sizes too big. Honestly, the 1 win lads. I was going to tweet about it, but I thought I'd shut up for a bit. just because, you know, it's the RMRs. As you said though, Flamey, he went 15-41 against the Cloud9 lads to qualify for the major. It was a -26, probably one of the worst individual performances we've seen, especially when it comes to the qualifying game. And you look at the 1-win game against Fnatic, as you said, sure, if you want to break things down, he didn't do the worst out of the lot, but he still went -8, you know? In this event, for 1-win as a whole, I think he was probably one of the worst performers on this team, if I'm not mistaken.
I'll put it this way. He was the 4th lowest rated player going into the game against Fnatic. In the entire RMRA, he was the 4th lowest rated player. Like, come on.
Ouch.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't help. And I'll say now, he was the 6th worst performer in the entirety of the RMR now that it's concluded. The people that are below him, 2 players from Ecstatic, 2 players from Astralis, 1 player from Aurora.
Yeah, the teams that went like 0-3.
Yeah, there's clearly, to be fair, Nafany is the 7th worst rated, so, you know, if you want to put that one out there, then if you want to give that caveat, sure. But as you said, right, like, this was totally doable for 1-win, this major.
It was, it really was. I feel for them.
And had you have had 1 more individual perform in each game, or, you know, you had that extra step up, that extra level, just something else, they'd have qualified. They really would have qualified. And I think there's a similar situation maybe to had as well with the Forza guys, right? They were 1 game away from qualifying to the major. You look at their history, they had a pretty easy draw, I'm not going to lie, in terms of the Booker roll system. You look at their matches compared to 1-wins. Sprout, okay, fair enough. They played 1-win. They lost to them, okay, sure. Ecstatic, Astralis, BNE.
It's a doable run.
Again, it's one of those runs you look at, and, you know, in a different time and a different place, Forza go 3-2, or maybe even 3-1. They could have probably beat 1-win in that best of 1, and
that was close.
Things look a little different. You know, they qualify for the major 3-1. They're in the place of a Spirit, a C9, a Sprout. You know.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Heartbreaks for the teams in red, always is.
Yeah. I don't think we can comment much on Ecstatic or Aurora. They were kind of like the least favourite to qualify out of the group stage. It's valuable experience for them. I think for Aurora as well. I'd even argue for the Ecstatic guys, right? I think for both of those teams, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1 player, but basically all of those teams for both rosters haven't been to an international land before, right? I think maybe some of the Ecstatic guys have been to one of them, but for Aurora, I don't think they've ever left their homeland to go to a LAN. No. For Eternal Fire, it's been a while since we've seen them, you know, venture outside of Turkey as well.
Still disappointing, to be honest, because I thought they looked okay at Pro League.
Yes, I was
going
to
mention. We'll get to Eternal Fire later, right?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I've got a lot of thoughts for that.
I was going to summarise quite quickly on Aurora and Ecstatic, both 0-3 teams. Someone has to do it, right? And I think if you want to,
no one wants to. But...
Yeah, if you want to like actually screw your head on and think about it a little bit, you would pick those 2 teams to go 0-3. Maybe in place of Ecstatic, you put an Astralis or maybe, you know, an Eternal Fire.
B8.
Or a bait.
B8,
yeah, or a bait. Yeah. But it has to be done, you know, and I don't think you can hate on them too much if you're one of the angry bettors that thought Ecstatic were going to get a map. El Bozo is all I have to say. You've got to give them the respect and the time, because they've only been a team together for a little while. Same situation for Aura as well. I think, you know, they were only made up midway through this year.
Yeah, valuable learning experience. I mean, we had the guys on the show just before the RMR, and look, they're nice fellas. And I think even that game against G2, like, they got 16-0'd, but fuck me, they probably could have got, like, 5 or 6 rounds. Like, if you actually watch that game, it was not meant to be a 16-0. They got unlucky in a couple of rounds. They had, like, some man advantages, and they just couldn't pull through. And then even their game against Bait, like, it went to OT. So while it was an 0-2 performance, I think we got to see some glimpses of Ecstatic. I'd like to see them at the next RMR. Come the next major, you know, next year round. Let's see what they're like then.
I'll end off our segment before we we go on to the next RMRB by just saying I think Manx, considering that Ecstatic have lost, you know, basically the entire group. I'm really impressed. Manx is I'm not sure how much he learned from Birth from Sky. If he's done anything at all, I think it's worked pretty well, because to IGL, basically a brand new core, to just make the RMR full stop is the achievement and the accomplishment they were going for. I think any further than that, it would have been an absolute miracle. So yeah, well done to Manx and well done for them to actually get there. But other than that, they need more time.
RMRB, gents. I think we need to speed through this one, because we're like an hour down and we're not even like halfway through.
This was normal anyway.
Yeah.
Can we just talk about Sangal and then leave the rest of them or something?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few teams that we can talk about in the B because most of them are in the red. I'd like to maybe start this discussion with OG. I mean, sure, maybe not a tier 2 team, but I think of the pieces that OG have, Flamesy was the only person that has stuck in this roster from last year. Nexa obviously came from G2, so I'm going to exclude him from the conversation. But for Degstart, for Fiku and NeoFrag specifically, what a rise up from them two players from their standing, right? You went from their teams respectively. Obviously, NeoFrag came from Sinners, right? For Fiku, he came from AGO before that. Since then, straight into the major. I mean, sure, probably not the best of times in your opening game against Mouse, and probably quite an easy run in terms of the Booker roll system overall. But they did very, very well to hold their own this major, this RMR, sorry, and they get a spot in the major. I think that's the only team really we need to talk about, maybe in the green, unless if you want to comment on Outsiders a bit, but...
I just have a little bit to say about OG. Like, I cast them against Heroic in like the seeding game. Unfortunately for NeoFrag, I don't think we're seeing the NeoFrag that we know from Sinners. And it's understandable when you've got like Flames on the lineup. Like, you're not expecting NeoFrag to get set up for a star player, but it does hurt because we know that he was. I would put him and Fasha as like the number 1 and number 2 riflers in all of tier 2 when I think back to like last year or even this year. And yet, well, maybe last year, I would say. And we just haven't seen him have the best of performances. I mean, Flames, he's always been like top stuff since moving over from Endpoint. Fiku, I'm seeing quite a lot of good stuff out of him. I know that he was a part of like that AGO 6-7 man lineup for quite a few years. So they've got some young pieces, a lot of tier 2 representation, and yeah, they did well this event. But again, their draw. It's understandable why they went 3-1.
Yeah,
like, you take on Illumina and Falcons, and then an Outsiders who aren't a top tier 1 team right now. You can see why OG went 3-1 in this event.
Outsiders are so weird, aren't they? Like they were basically like the almost, I don't know, probably guaranteed 3-2 team. Like they were never ever going to go 3-0. They were never ever going to really, I think, ever going to impress. But they were they reeked of a team that were going to squeak it 3-2, and I think it was expected that they did. To be honest, in this particular RMR, I'm disappointed in Falcons a little bit. I will say. Okay. I think I predicted one of Falcons or Heat to make it. I went for Heat in the end because they got so close last time, and they beat Astralis in Pro League. But little did I know how little that meant. But yeah, I think one of the two. I hope they'd make it, and neither did, unfortunately.
I mean, just to add that, what was it? Heat took on Astralis at the last RMR, came really close to making the major, and then were 1 round away against Outsiders at the last RMR. Look at this time,
the leg shot.
Yeah, we all remember it. So I think it just shows that sometimes you just got to have your moment. You've got to be able to perform at that RMR because you might not have that chance again. And I think we've seen it with the results from Heat and Saw at this RMR. It's not the same. It's not the same at all.
No. I'd argue that teams like K23 and Sangal, despite going 2-3, impressed. I think K23 losing Norbert and Fame, considering they lost their 2-star players, to go 2-3. Is it Finnegan that's IGLing now? That ex-Espada guy?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, like that is honestly a pretty good result, and I love Sangal. I was almost disappointed that Sangal didn't beat Mouse because if they did, that would have been like a whole career's reward for Skrunk after rotting away in like tier 3 German Counter-Strike for 8 years. Bless him. Like he finally deserved a shot. He got his shot, but unfortunately just a step too far. And Soulfly, he's a star for sure.
You're going, right?
I was just going to say, quickly touching on Sangal as well, Fuzi as an individual maybe isn't the flashiest AWPer in the world, but the change that they've made for Sangal, right, in the last few months, because I think the old AWPer's on he's like on army duty, right? He's like been called into military service for a year.
Sensei.
Yeah, Sensei's been called into military service. So the fact that, I mean, it's been like 2-3 months that Fuzi's been in this team as well. I've got to give him props because, again, you look at the draw that they've had, and especially those losses. I mean, the wins, you expect them to be winning, but for you to lose against Big, Heroic, and Mouse, I mean, Mouse is a big disappointment. But, like, come on, that draw again is pretty difficult for Sangal, and they cope brilliantly. And I think, actually, the same for K23. I think for Falcons, they didn't look bad this RMR. For Mouse, it was always going to be difficult. And then you draw the short straw against Big in the 2-2 stage. it's just difficult to see, really, isn't it? These 2 and 3 teams, we want to like see those tier 2 teams pull off those upsets, and we had 2 very, very close contenders in Sangal and K23 this RMR.
Yeah, funny enough, actually, I was doing the prep for the Sangal game in the last best of 3 because I thought that's what we were going to have, and then we got it changed right at the end. So the night before, I was sort of getting into some good storylines. I mean, the idea that like Scrunk and Crimbo had played together, that like QB and Sin had played together, and there's like all these back and forth between Sangal and what they can do against a Mouse, right, in like a best of 3 when you've got players up against one another. But in the end, yeah, I don't know, like what to think about it. Like, I think
Skrunk's like the equivalent of like, I don't know, who's a less disgraced Danish IGL that's brought players through than Hunden? Like, maybe, okay, let's do a different.
Berry.
Let's do a different Berry. So like, he's the German Berry, and he's the German. If we want to compare it to North America, Sheikh Zilla. Then let's say that, because he's brought through so many young German players, and I was really hopeful for him, but. Yeah, I think this team could do good in Tier 2 though in the future. And in these upcoming cups and maybe CCT, they could genuinely put a run in.
I really want to speed things up, gents. So any final thoughts on RMRB?
Just say quickly, I mean, K23, they lose Norbert, Fame, and Nealon, and they still go 2 and 3. Like, fuck me. Like, fair play to them. Like, that's not bad at all to do this well at the RMR when you've literally lost all 3 of your best pieces on that team.
Yeah, I must admit, Illuminar kind of surprised me a bit. It was on short notice. You got to remember how short notice that was. Like 2 days before, you take a best of 3 against Fantasy. Sure, they're a mix, but yeah, it's
something.
It's a shame because I think if you give them more time, they make things a lot more competitive. Maybe not in the beginning, but the game against Sangal could have been closer. But I'm very happy that Sangal made it over them and obviously pushed that 2 and 2 boundary.
Monty being a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I was gonna touch on Monty as a team. I think the game in particular for me, I watched them against K23, and if I'm honest, it was really, really sad to see. Really sad to see because I actually got DM'd on Twitter during the game from I think the guy that owns like CS:GO 500 or something, and he like helped. He helped the Monty team like get all the photos and stuff sorted, and it turns out that Warrow's IGLing. Obviously, that was a big conversation for Monty, right? It's like who is calling on this team because they have like 3 AWPers, you know, and it's like it's an absolute shit show when you look at the roles. But
sorry, I was going to say what I will say. I like the team. I think they reek of onliners, and that's the reality of the situation. And they didn't play with Boris when they had done previously. If they had Boris, I think it would have been a different story.
Damage.
In my opinion.
Fair enough.
I'm with you.
Heat being a bit disappointing. I think Trav, you already touched on that though. Maybe you were expecting them so close to get through in the last RMR. Just didn't really do well in this one. Tough
Jackson as well.
Tough draw against Ents. K23, a new side, and you're losing to them, and then you lose obviously in the French derby, which is obviously always an exhilarating watch to have for historical sake as well, right? It was a massive one. But yeah, I think for 0-3, Fancy and Saw, fair enough. It's whatever. RMR's done, gents. I think we can be quite happy. Let's
quick.
Yeah, you reckon? I think. Oh, wrong button. I think we can talk about maybe a little bit more with the CCT stuff. I'm not sure how much time we're going to get through for these events that are like finished, right?
We can briefly look at like the winners, like who's done well.
Sure.
Like, that's as far
we
as
can start with. Do you want to start with Central Europe or Northern Europe?
Central Europe's fine. We can just go off for that.
Series 2, right?
Series 2, yeah.
Cool.
MIBR versus 1 win, right?
No, this was the next one after that. That
the
was
next
the
one.
OG4
final.
Yeah.
OG4. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, I casted the final of the MIBR 1-win final from Series 1. That's why I was confused for a second. Yeah, fair enough.
No, I mean, it's great to see, like, you know, some Tier 1 competition be floated into the mix there. Like, you've got OG. I think for them, like, the problem with OG is that they just don't play many events. So getting here in Tier 2, getting the taste of what it's like. I think from like an overall picture, I feel for K23 because they got stuck like having to forfeit one of their games because of the travel and to get ready for the RMR. But Endpoint making a top 4 placement. One thing that Endpoint have not always been great in at these sort of events is going deep. So they would have been happy about that one. And then like ITB on the other side, I'm surprised about that, to be honest, in these cups. Normally they're not that great in them.
I think to the Elises that we're in right now, and I'm not too sure if they've played a game or if they have one. I think they have a game today, right? But they're 1-1 in the Swiss stage, maybe 2-1, 1-2. I don't quite know where they sit right now. But they're never a team that does ever so clean in these events. And the fact that if you have a look up here real quick, I did just want to talk about them. The run that they had, Mouse NXT in the opening matchup, obviously they went 0-3, but that's always going to be difficult to prep for a new side and play against Illuminar. They lose to Sinners, they beat eSuper, so okay, maybe not the best names out there, but the fact that you go into playoffs, your opening game is against Aurora, made the RMRs, and I mean, they had connection issues, okay, that's unfortunate, but they look pretty good. ITB were up 13-9 on the second map anyway, so you could kind of already see where that game was going to go, and it feels like that was going to be a 2-0 naturally. They play against Detropic. They get smashed in the middle map. It's 2 16-14s. It could go either way throughout the series. But ITB close it, and then obviously you play against Forza. They do a very good job against them to go 29 rounds in both maps. Yeah, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. But for ITB, a brilliant job, and for Forza to go on and beat OG in the grand final, that was a really really nice way to watch the finals. Two very close maps, overpass, maybe not as much, but still, it was what 27 rounds there. I think these events are actually going to be quite interesting to watch, and I think it's going to nurture a lot of the gap to the tier 1.5, you know, where like you're starting to edge in a bit.
This tournament's always done that, hasn't it? No, I was going to say this tournament's always done that. It's like given teams like Copenhagen Flames really a leg up to make a name for themselves and do something.
Yeah.
Exactly. Gambit Youngsters were my favourite ones to see come through from the very early days of that one. And yeah, I think now that obviously the meme with these CCT events now is that, they're going to invite G2 and Astralis, Keck W, lol, lol. Like what's the idea now?
I mean, historically, like the Home Sweet Home Cups, the tier 1 teams used to get romped when they get invited.
Vitality against Skade, remember that one?
Yeah,
I casted that. Yeah. That was an unbelievable game. Yeah.
I'll just add, like, Honorous looked really good this event. And I feel like finally
I did the 9Z
we're starting
game.
to see a competitive Honorous, because they've been going for a while. Like, I remember casting Honorous quite a bit when the project first formed, and I remember something like they'd won 3 out of like 40 best of 3 or something. like it was something ridiculous. There was so many losses. But the idea that they beat 9Z and they almost 2-0 endpoint, like, I think we're starting to see a shift from Honorous where they're not a high-end tier 2 team, but there could be more behind it.
Getting there. Hopefully there's just a quick button that I can press. Aha, we go North Europe now, gents. We'll
yeah, I think there's we can just skip over the closed quals then. Should we just do that?
You wanna is this an ongoing event? Oh, hold on.
Yeah, because that was what was going to come up in the next bit.
Oh, okay. What do you want me to do? Central Europe then?
No, North Europe qual. The closed qual.
Closed qual, sure.
It's a little bit.
You're clutching at straws here, Josh, for these bits. Astralis Talent, Jano, Titans. Yeah, whoa, what a team! I can't wait to see them in more events. Lol. Yeah, man, I can. You know what? If we didn't spend so long on the RMRs, I reckon this would actually turn into a Titans hate show. I feel bad for the org, mate. They got robbed of all their money. MSL was like, "Yep, I'll have what $2,000-3,000 a month and walk away happy. Thank you very much, good sir." Obviously, a beat Young Ninjas who are going through a bit of a reshuffle, a little bit of a rejig. Although they have been together for a little while, it's early cycle for them. Close qualies, Copenhagen Flames beating Skade X, Namiga getting a forfeit over Illuminar, 0-0 Prospects beating LDLC. That's probably the most interesting game of the lot, in all honesty. Obviously, the main event's coming up soon as well. I think we had to have a look at this.
Yeah, we can have a quick look now, to be fair.
We could just skip through the upcoming bit and we can have a look at the now. Titans playing, still under the name. Yeah, fun. ITB still kicking around as well. One thing I'd like to say though, ITB, we just talked about them playing in like what, the Northern Europe or the Southern, whatever the fuck it was.
This North, South, whatever shit, like whatever pole of the compass CCT decide to use means fuck all. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
They invite every single, if they can't fill the region, I guess you could say, They just pick out anyone from anywhere in Europe.
Yeah, Ryan, can you bring that up on stream as well? Which was my banging tweet that somehow only got 12 likes on the announcement.
Where was this?
I've just put it in the week.
I can't tab out.
good.
I can't tab out.
That's pretty good though.
Hold on. If you like, I don't know, drop it to me like email. No, I don't know.
No, don't worry, it's fine.
How long ago was it? I'll take us back to the cams and I'll go.
It was on the 6th of October in my media tweet, so it'll go pretty quickly.
All right.
It's on the photos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Media.
So while that's happening,
6th of October.
Yeah.
Oh, what
yeah.
I'll bring it up for everyone.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this at all as well, Trav. Yeah. So the announcement
I did, yeah.
of Titans removing a few players. GG, go next quali. We'll probably see that in the next events because they need players. So
yeah, hit them up.
Carry on.
It's a joke that this attempt. I mean, it's an MSL South attempt again, isn't it? The South roster that absolutely failed. Like, it's a joke. I mean, I don't understand how anyone would ever be expected to buy out any of those players after they've been on the team for that short space of time and buy them out of that contract. I don't see it happening. I think they're kind of doomed for another little portion of their career. And MSL, I mean, as soon as I saw that MSL wasn't playing one of the events with Titans, and I think it was Roland playing instead, I was like, uh-oh, what's happened here? You know, and then immediately a few days later it completely collapses. So yeah, fucking mess.
I do find quite interesting, I will touch on that a little bit further, is that the tweet says Sunny, Oscar, Supra and Lambert are on transfer list. MSL was not included in that.
That's
and
right.
if you have a look at their Wikipedia, he's still part of the active roster. So MSL probably going to go for another rebuild.
Seems that way.
Just like
Pump
to
some
say,
more money into it.
Yeah, just like to say, first and foremost, this team has been together since
The beginning of last year, wasn't it?
April 12th of 2021. Since then, the entire organisation has won $2,501 in prize winnings. That comes from 3 events: the Tip Sport Cup Prague, the Spring Sweet Spring #2, and they won $175 going 5th to 8th in Open. Yeah. Congratulations, lads. I hope that puts food in your mouths. Say.
Let's move on.
Yes. Do you want to talk about this Sazka Cup, whatever?
Yeah, we can do. Han, one of our guests that we've had on the show. Funny enough, a lot of people have been talking about him. Have been like the next tier 1 AWPer. We'll see if that's like actually into the fold or not. But he won a LAN event with these guys. They took on Entropic Prague and then Asuba in the final. Sinners not making the final. It's very odd with Sinners because the way that I look at them is that just before the player break, they had their coach standing in. They did really well, like they're making top 4 placings in online events. They bring in Zero, and it feels like they can bring anyone into this team who isn't a coach, and it should be an immediate upgrade. And instead, Sinners are just not at the top end of tier 2 at all. I don't know what is going on with them right now.
I'll bring up the Wikipedia. I hope this is the right one.
Have you seen much in them recently, Trav?
I haven't had a chance. It's one of the teams actually that I've always enjoyed covering, whether they had the old roster or a new one. And yeah, this Enterprise team, I agree with you on the Han thing. I mean, ever since I watched him, even before the Fiend days, Dweg, and we got a chance to do that one Fiend game that is etched in our memory.
Yep.
Like even before then, I thought he was pretty sick. So to see him doing well on Enterprise I'm very happy for him. As for Sinners, though, I agree. I haven't seen too much of them, so I can't really pass too much opinion. But what I can say is that I also thought, considering they had kept the core, that they'd still do pretty well and not just rot in these sort of regional events. It's not been too great for them.
I mean, look at the score as well. Like, you can't even make the argument that it was a close game. It's 16-7, 16-6. Like, you get absolutely rocked. You get to play in the 3rd place match. Congratulations, you beat Entropic Prague 16-12, 16-4. What a result. I mean, you earned an extra $1,000 by beating Entropic Prague, so I guess that is something, $200 per player extra if that's how it works.
Look at the distribution of prize pool as well. It's like 20k for first.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
4K
I like it. I like it though.
Yeah.
I like these top-heavy events. If there's anyone out there that's thinking about making a tournament and is listening in, I really enjoy the top-heavy stuff. Just means you get to push on further. I think the majors are a really good example, right? You get like 500k for first, and then it's halved for second. I mean, obviously it's still 250 grand. That's a lot of money, but you know, to go from 100% to 50% in from first to second. This one's even harsher, but yeah, I like it. eSuper Enterprise Grand Final. The fact that eSuper are able to push it to 3 is always a fun one to see, and they make this series look competitive as well. Congratulations to Enterprise, of course. It's nice to see that they get a bit of success. Sure, maybe not so international, but I think this is going to do really well for them, because I think back to probably the last time they won an event, and it was, I mean, what, the ASEX Prague, I want to say.
Yeah.
Let's have a
I
look.
wonder where you were going with that for a second. You started with ASEX, and I was like, well, what the hell?
No,
what have I just come
no,
back
no.
to?
Let's have a quick look here. I wanna double check. Oh, they won advanced. Okay. Oh, it's Cash Cup. Never mind. It wasn't even advanced. Yeah. So the last event they won was in ASEX Prague Open. And to go from, it was what, 4 teams, and it was like Royals involved, I think, as well, and you had the Spade boys in there, or OSS at the time. Yeah, it's massive win for them. So yeah, congratulations to them. Very happy to see that they do so well, and yeah, they get themselves that win. I guess we can push on, keep going, gents.
Just quickly on the Mystery Hype International, can we get them involved,
Whoa,
Ryan?
okay.
Just a quick one.
Yeah, of course. It's an event.
Greg, I'll let you take that one. That's for sure.
I tell you what.
Scouring. Go on, Ryan. Yeah.
I was gonna say, never in my life have I seen. Well, never in my life is a bit of a statement, because I've got one of them on my page as well. You know, you always get caught up in these things. This is the first time in quite some time that I've seen the old red banner come out over the top of the Liquipedia page, and Liquipedia do really nicely, and they kind of go, "Oh, it's been cancelled." This is the indicator of, holy hell, some shady shit has gone on in the background. That's what this red bar means at the top of the page. It's a shame as well, because this tournament as a whole, right, has got some pretty banging teams in. You know, you look at 777 as the Norwegian representation. You've got your 1-pin guys in there. 0-0 prospects are involved. Obviously, you've got your alternate attacks geezers in there. Your Nexuses, Zello, the Los Kogutos guys. SC are in there. They had a pretty decent run. Like, this is actually quite like a stacked event. You know, Skate X involved. I've completely overlooked them. SOS in there as well. And we played the group stage a little bit, and then whoa, hold on a minute. I don't know. Someone's profiting massively out there. Some rich dudes just put all in on 1 pin, and he's absolutely walked out a winner. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on really.
The end date is tomorrow, so the tournament is supposed to finish tomorrow, and yet there's
cool. That's a lot of games to go.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. I mean, funny enough, I actually was watching the SOS game against Skate X, so that's how I knew about the tournament, because SOS were playing in it. And I've heard that even doing the veto in this event, they got given like a dodgy link to do the veto. So like the teams were like, "Oh no, we'll just do the veto in server. Like we're not gonna go through this link to do the veto or anything." Apparently, alternate attacks have already like pulled out of the event. They just were like, "Yeah, we're done." So yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen here, to be honest. I mean, even the Twitter account from these guys has had like 50 tweets, because when I saw SOS like retweeting it, I was like, who are these guys? I don't even know what's going on here. So
it's all right, mate. You can get a mystery knife if you follow them and retweet. I reckon that's a good score. That. I'm joking, by the way. Don't interact with them. We don't appreciate that kind of stuff here.
I mean, I don't even know what's happening. But yeah, just a funny one that caught my eye.
There you go. More dodgy events. Love to see it. I think the last time we had one was probably the what was it called?
The one that was the online into LAN.
Yes. Oh my god. HSG?
That's it, the Masters. Yeah.
Is it HSG? HCG?
HCG.
That's the one. Hardcore gaming something. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. That's it now. We're done now.
M and J and ReTr00 on the commentary. That's.
Hope they got
big
paid.
up Ryan. Big up Ryan. Okay. Future events, I guess, or whatever the next one is.
Yeah.
Upcoming.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Upcoming.
We happy there?
Go on. You linked something about the finest going into this.
Oh yes.
The local LAN. Well, I say local LAN. It is a local LAN, but it's actually quite a big one, to be fair.
Yes.
Trav, do you want to have a go with pronouncing the event name?
Oh, here we go. Let's have a look at it. Let's open the article. Okay, let's have a look at it. Is it at the bottom? Where's it gone?
Is
I
this
lost the
the
name.
Svenska event?
Ah, yes, one. Svenska Cupen 2022.
I think you've done that quite well, mate.
Mate,
Yeah.
you've brought in a whole region of fans now to after that. Yeah, so for those that don't know, this event starts in what? I think a week, not even that now, a few days.
3 days from today, like as of right now. So...
Okay, so if you're watching on YouTube slightly later.
Oh god,
but-
NIP are playing. Okay.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
I didn't
So-
even notice that.
So yeah, we've got some pretty big names out there. Me and Josh were trying to break the numbers down a little bit. Basically, I know it's not like to accuracy, but knock a zero off, and that's kind of what SEK to pounds is, right? If I'm not mistaken, it's kind
It's
of
around
like
that. It's about 45,000 USD.
yeah.
roughly.
So it's not like. It's not the worst prize pool for NIP. Obviously, with the Alexi B change, this is probably just a comfortable one. They saw the dollar
Just don't
signs.
get
And,
robbed.
yeah, exactly. As you said, there's a little tweet that's gone out that Liquipedia hasn't yet updated it, but they're playing with someone different, right? The X Finest boys.
Yes. What is it? Forest is coming in for who?
Forest.
We
Well,
who's playing?
actually, I believe
replacing
because
Krias.
yeah, because Snacks is playing right now for Finest against Sprout in the Eliza Invitational.
What?
That game is going on
What
right
is
now.
going on?
It's Hades, Snacks, Pleasant, Shocks, and Twist, and Snacks went 30. Snacks got dropped 30, and Hades dropped 33 in a 1916 win. By the way, carried by Poland. Finest in that first map, which is currently second map's currently going on right now, and Sprout are 11-5 up. But yeah, Finest are going to be Forest, Twist, Pleasant, Hades, Shocks for this LAN.
Jeez.
Unbelievable.
Okay, this
I'm
is
excited.
exciting.
Yeah.
Man. I'm gonna keep an eye on this one.
Yeah, obviously you got your eyeballers lads in there, your Lil Mix guys getting invited. Always nice to see Robin,
They've got a
Jaquinho
decent
back.
lineup now, to be fair.
The Lil
like,
Mix boys, yeah.
Yeah. They've got a much better lineup than they've had previously.
I see that. Yeah.
Nice to
I mean,
see.
obviously, it'd be interesting to see if they play against Svegehead, of course, their
Ooh,
former player, right?
I
That'd be a
was-
fun game.
I would just say, what about 0-0 Prospects? Because the core three of Little Mix went to Prospects,
Oh
didn't
yes, I see that.
So,
Yes.
they? Are they?
They
in
don't
the
play
draw?
against each other though. It's
Oh.
eyeballers versus 0-0 prospects.
So
By the
Lil Mix
way-
versus
Final.
Kappa Bar.
I want to ask you a question because you've literally had him on this show, right? It is Kriaz and not Krees, right?
Yeah,
Kriaz.
Kriaz, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, because that's one I've been told differently by like 5 different people before in the past. So
I used to call him Creeds when like we cast them way back in the day, but yeah, Kriaz.
yeah,
Best
gotcha.
smile
Thank
in
you.
tier
Yes. Yeah, true. True.
two.
Yeah, nice to see. I did actually just have a look. Dijon playing for Kappa Bar. I don't know when that's happened, but
And Batten, fuck, you got some old boys in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pupcake sticking around. He was. I think I remember in
Oh,
like in an
legend.
Elisa event, right? And he
Yeah,
did
yeah.
really really well.
Wait,
Go on.
wasn't Pupcake the guy that almost
X-Gamer,
beat
maybe?
Astralis in one of the open quals for the RMR? Wasn't he having an
Possible.
insane game? I remember it for some reason because the name's called
Didn't
Pupcake.
they beat one win? One pin,
me
not one
see.
win. One pin.
What?
Oh yeah, Brandenburg Shooters. That's the team we was on.
BRB
Brandenburg Shooters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
So
did
that
beat
was
one
last
pin, didn't
time
they? They
around,
did beat
wasn't
one
it?
pin, I think, in that
Oh,
quali. There
God.
you go. Wow.
Pretty sure.
That hurts a little bit now that we've mentioned that. I've kind of like, friendly fired a bit. But yeah,
Unlucky.
nicely done. Good event. Starts in 3 days. 100% will be giving this one a watch. I think.
I can't remember the last time Sweden's had an event like this. So
Yeah.
this is huge. I'm super keen on it. Probably won't have an English broadcast. It's in Space Arena. I don't know what that is. Like it's just a hall
NASA?
or something. No. But yeah. It says 450 seated and 100 standing. So it'll be like a small venue.
I hope we get a decent crowd. I hope they've
Mate,
sorted
They've
that
got the
out.
largest LED screen wall in the Nordics. Oh mate, I'm proper keen now.
Mate, the pyrotechnics team are going to be going up massive. The lighting teams, everyone.
Every seat has charger possibilities. Oh, mate, we've got to
Charger.
go. Fly us over to Sweden,
Charger.
mate. Yeah.
What? Mate, that's insane. All right, fair enough. I'm excited. As for the desk and commentators as well, threat on the analyst desk. That's gonna be a good one to watch. Vargo as well on there. Yeah, cool beans. I'm ready for it. I'm excited to see how this cup goes. 500,000 SEK, like $45,000. Will be a fun watch. Already touched on CCT beforehand, so I think I want to jump straight into FiReLEAGUE, gents.
Yeah, that starts soon too.
This is the global final. So it was announced that it was a lot of teams kind of Spanish/Portuguese speaking, right? It's hosted in Spain. They wanted a lot of the blood in there. If I'm honest, I'm gonna say this now. I'm really disappointed in the teams that are playing for the meat of the prize pool. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, man. I mean, you look at the teams in this. I mean, sure, 9Z, Imperial, MIBR, Pain all getting invited, or well, at least 9Z qualify. The rest getting invited. You get Spirit as an invite. Like
So many people were upset about that because it was a North
dig
American
in.
team that were meant to go.
Yeah.
It was was it Nouns that were meant to go?
Yes, I think what it was is Team 1 qualified, but they couldn't go. So then Nouns was second, and they were like, well, we should have gone. And they went, no, we're just going to invite
That's it.
Spirit.
Yeah, that's just cringe. That's cringe, guys. Come on. Sort
To me-
it the fuck out.
go on, Josh.
To be fair, I don't know, because I don't know this event, but it was the 1st of October that Team 1 withdrew from the event due to overlapping schedules. They're replaced by Spirit. That's 11 days ago. You know, how easy is it to get visas for a North American team? I don't know. Again,
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
And they're not going to have the connections like ESL or your BLAST do for those visas, are they? So
I don't know how quickly the turnaround time could have been. Like, if Team 1 maybe told them even further in advance, I don't know. But it's only because they qualified to Rotterdam that Team 1 are going there and rather than here.
Yeah, it's the
because obviously
same
both
dates.
events are at the exact same
They
time.
overlap. Yeah.
But I do feel for the Americans because normally if your qual team doesn't make it, it should go to your second place. But at the same time, there could be more behind it, and it could be down to a time-restricted sort of thing.
Here's the thing for me, right? Like, I get obviously they're trying to touch in on the Spanish/Portuguese communities, your South Americans. Are you going to tell me right now, if we look at the HLTV rankings, that teams like OG, teams like Fnatic, you know, Sprout even, they're going to decline an invite here for $150,000?
Yeah,
if
maybe.
I'm honest with you, I'm really disappointed at the level of teams that have been invited here.
Yeah, but the major as well, man. Like, so many of them
I get
are
it.
thinking, like, they've got the RMR. Because obviously they would have had to have told them even before the RMR. And everyone at the RMR is going to think we're qualifying to the major. So
Of
no
course.
one wants to accept an
I get
event
that. I
that's,
get
like,
that.
just after.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, 100%. But, like,
Well, except for
I don't
Spirit.
know. Well, yeah, Spirit. And then you think, what, Imperial made it, didn't they? 9Z were in the RMR. They still
you
took
do
the...
make a fairly decent point,
MIBR
to be
still
fair.
took it. Pain still took it. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think that sort of that makes that point void, unfortunately. Yeah, it was a good one to start off with,
Yeah,
but yeah. It's a shame that it goes on at the same time as Rotterdam, but
yeah.
oh well.
I mean, and to be honest,
we are.
yeah.
Scheduling.
Like, this is so, like, you look at the flags of the teams. Let me just click it, right? You've got so much, like, South American representation in this event. And then you hosted the fucking event in Barcelona. Like, I mean, sure, there's going to be,
still
like,
Spain, I
fan
guess.
base there. Yeah, exactly.
It's
but,
going to
like,
be cool because of they holding it at the Camp Nou, right? That's the big factor of that. How
Yeah.
cool that
At the
might be.
Barcelona
so,
FC.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
You
I
don't know
guess-
football, do you, Retro?
I know he's in Man U and he's Portuguese, and I know it's not.
Okay.
You know,
So
I
we-
was,
It's not the
it was
same.
a really loose connection. Like, at least give me that. It was like a really loose
You
connection.
should have said that when we were talking about Shiri.
Yeah,
Are
true.
we thinking like maybe Spirit and Imperial final?
Let's
no,
have a
no.
look at the bracket real quick.
Yeah.
So, Pain versus Masonic. Where do we think that one's going? That's gonna be an interesting
I
one.
think.
But I think
Should be Pain.
I think Pain will have it. Imperial Isurus, Imperial. I think we can
Imperial,
all
yeah.
agree. Spirit Windigo, Spirit all the way.
Don't even know who Windigo are. So
Yeah, well, there you go, mate.
It's Windingo, the
Oh,
Aussie.
Windingo,
Windingo.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say
the
Windigo should have a...
Argentinian,
Yeah,
Bulgarian team.
Mibba, Mr. MIBR versus
That could be
9Z.
quite a close one actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how that one goes. Either way, Spirit will beat whoever they play against there, and I think Imperial will beat Pain. So yeah, maybe the
I'm
Another
looking forward to
rematch
seeing who wins the
between
event.
Imperial
I will
Pain.
say. Yeah, I'd like to see that. That'd be fun, for sure.
there we go.
Hmm.
Nice.
Alright.
Rotterdam next, I guess, is the
Yeah,
one we should touch on.
Rotterdam.
Obviously, we talked about the overlapping events. Rotterdam is just one of the ESL Challenger events.
Do we think that maybe some of these challenger events are like almost too stacked sometimes with the
No.
invitees? You
No.
don't think so?
No.
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 I like it because I think it
Alright.
gives good bleed between tier 1 and tier 2, and I think for the
Okay.
prize pool that they're handing out as well, I think that it's actually quite nice to see. For-
Poor old Knicks are going to get owned, but yeah.
I tell
I
you what,
agree.
I'll tell you
They
what
got a
would have
top
been
group,
nice though. To like I don't know a South African qualifier spot. We have 0 Netherlands.
I was, mate. Do you know what? You're reading my mind there, Ryan. I was like, where is the Benelux qual or any qualifiers? Surely, like a EC Brugge or a Lowland Lions, like because that's how they used to do it when it was like the DreamHack Opens. You usually had like a local team, so that's a bit of a shame because I know that they don't have events very often. And if
I've been Genk
correctly,
or someone. Yeah.
Like
the thing is, the region's so dead now. That's the problem. It's like maximum like 3 or 4 teams that would even. Like the other teams that would make it would all be mixes. There's only like 2 orgs left, I think, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right, that could be a reason. Because I remember there was like a Blackie and an Eshian team at one of the DreamHack.
Blackie and Sam, I know them very well. They're very good friends. Yeah, very good friends of mine. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't surprise me if there was an actual Benelux qualifier. They would probably. I mean, I know for sure that NSN would try and do it. He would put like NSN, probably Bernard, as well. That would. Yeah. They would probably play together because they play together a lot. Maybe a couple of extra friends and give it a go because they came close to. They played I think a Cash Cup. Was it a Cash Cup or was it Qualifier? I can't remember, but it was only very recently, and they took a Luminar to like 16-14. So they can play the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if they went for it. But I do agree with you. Maybe just lack of because ESL Benelux right now, the actual ESL Benelux League is just an absolute like it's like I don't know. What do you call it? A dead forest or whatever. Like there's not much there at all, unfortunately.
Spotting conference for it though, so I guess that's probably why some of these invite teams are stacked. They're probably done on ESL points, right? Like the ESL rankings. These invites would be my best guess, which is why your Ences get invited.
Like, why is Ents here? Because Ents is a partner team, so even if they go to conference, they can't do anything. They're already in Pro League.
Yeah, you're right. If Mal's got a slot as well,
that's a good point.
Mals have got one too.
So
why are they here?
Yeah.
I know. Again, probably will say the only reason for that is that to give teams like Fluxo, for example, maybe Team One as well, a chance to play against some of the bigger boys and see what they can do. And upsets. To be fair as well, upsets are a big part of ESL Challenger. We saw 0-0 Nation against Furia. We saw Movistar just destroy everyone in Valencia, and then we saw, of course, Wings Up in Melbourne beat OG in that game. So I think it's a big part of ESL Challenger is to sort of promote upsets in a way, and maybe that's what they're going for.
Yeah, but I mean, there's definitely better options though, isn't there, than giving out a conference
for sure
spot? Because the likelihood is it just gets passed down the pecking order, right? And I'm not sure if this bracket, it doesn't even have a third, fourth place decider, right? So then how do you determine? Because I mean, if Ents and Maus don't make it to the grand finals, then something's gone horribly wrong. So how's that slot then determined? Is it just you play a best of 3 online, Movistar versus outsiders, and just whoever gets it gets it?
I was just thinking, I don't even know if Maus and Ents can play in conference. Just knowing that they've already got a Pro League spot, they might not even be allowed to play in conference.
It would go to the next place team for sure.
But then what if Ents and Maus go first and second?
Well, yeah, exactly. That's my point. But there's no third, fourth place game that's scheduled here. So
I know. Maybe they'd have to play it at some point. Who knows? It's very weird. Yeah, I do agree with you.
The thing is, though, it's very different because this is a LAN, isn't it? Like, this is a venue. This has got, like, all of the stops to be an ESL Challenger event. So that third place game is going to be played online. So, I don't know.
Do you want a leak that I can provide, which I'm pretty sure I wouldn't get shouted at for providing? Do you want to take a guess at who's casting this event with Yumi?
I don't know. Should we leak this? Should we just wait? Like... Well, I mean, Yumi's already been leaked to see if he's casting this event.
Well, I mean, it was known, but what do you think?
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. Dweg, do you know?
I don't know.
Mate, I told you just before the stream started.
You didn't tell me?
Yeah, I did. I said you asked, who's casting, and I told you.
Yeah. All right.
Mate,
James Bond.
All right, let's just wait for the announcement.
Sorry, I didn't hear anything. Yeah,
I didn't hear anything. It's Mr. Bardolph. It might be James Bardolph. Yeah, sure.
Ooh! I didn't hear anything.
I didn't hear anything.
Okay, let's keep moving on. Blast next, maybe. We want to talk about the showdown just a tad.
Yeah, just briefly.
I don't think there's like a lot to talk about. The European Showdown starts on the 19th. Yeah, the 19th. Some pretty big names, but obviously this comes from it's weird the way it works. They have like the champions event that we have the EU champions, They have like Eastern European Masters, Nordic Masters. They have like the Asian version, and so basically 4 teams get invited. 4 teams go through qualifiers. And then it's just the showdown, right? How it's always been, the single elim best of 3 bracket.
Mate, there could be some upset potential here. Like, not a massive amount. Of
Eternal
course, for the
Fire
tier
over
2 teams.
Astralis.
Yeah, that was the one that pinned out to me straight away. Like, I can't see Tyloo having a fight against Vitality.
Nah.
I don't think Sangul will put
Sangal.
a massive amount up
Nah.
against Big. They might take a map. And then Ecstatic against Heroic, it probably be a 2-0 to Heroic.
Yeah.
But the first
think-
one of Eternal Fire Astralis could be an upset.
I'll tell you what as well, the big Heroic matchup would be quite fun to watch because obviously both teams struggled a little bit in the RMRs. I think for Eternal Fire versus Vitality, that's going to be a whitewash. But for the grand final of that, bearing in mind there's only 1 slot to the full finals, this is probably a Heroic Vitality grand finals, and you would have expected both teams to be through to that event. So I think
Good point.
the start of the event doesn't look exciting, but for the grand final, there's a lot of future on the line. Obviously, for the prize pool here, you're like, it's like $7,000 difference, like 7.5k. What's the point? You look at the full finals itself. The money is massive here, and obviously the chance at a world final, a lot more BLAST Premier points. So for the cycle, specifically in Tier 1, this is a big event for the teams at the top to get their names on it. But looking
Yeah.
at the Tier 2 side of things, Eternal Fire versus Astralis will 100% be keeping our eye on.
Can I just
think-
add... Oh, go on, Trav.
Go on, Dweg. No, you go first, mate.
Well, I was just going to say the spots of the teams at Qual probably shouldn't have even been those teams. That Eternal Fire spot probably should have been going to Mouse because they were the team that were the favourites in that Qual. It didn't come through.
Yeah.
You then think about the favourites on the Qual that Sangul came through. It should have been Fnatic, and they didn't come through. Instead, Sangul did. And then even in the other one, we should have seen Ents in the spot where Ecstatic came through. And Ecstatic with the team. So all of those qualification spots are going to create cool stories because none of those teams were favorites to actually
Yeah.
make it to the showdown.
It's true. It's
Yeah.
very, very true.
Yeah, I'm hopeful for Sangal to be able to do stuff after we discussed earlier about how they performed at the RMR. I think might be able to do something here. A tough draw, but I think they might have a chance of in being in the half of Big and Heroic is scary. But we saw how close they took Mouse at the RMR. I think Tyler were going to do fuck all. Bless them. They always get here. But even with the roster changes, which we will get onto, I believe, yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to do much. Unfortunately, they're not the best team in Asia, so not to be for me.
We got
Okay.
any more upcoming events, or is that it?
That's
Just
it, I
the
think.
CCT like main events if you want to get into them, Ryan.
Yeah, can do. God, CCT, what a pleasure.
We touched on the which ones? I'm just trying to think which ones we've touched on already because we went through some of the quals of some of them.
No, I think we've done 3 already, haven't we?
So
CCT ones?
they have Western Europe, the open qualifier's just been done. The closed quali hasn't been announced
just
yet.
south and north. Just south and north.
So South Europe, we're currently in a position if it wants to load. Series 1 is like we've got some invited teams and we've got like some more high seed invited teams yet to go.
What do you reckon, Trav, on the new Copenhagen Flames? Because they're getting quite a lot of invites to these sort of level events.
Yeah, I mean that's what they need. They need to play. They need to play officials because right now they're very, very fresh and very new. I think a core. Let me just double check. I know it's like both from Sky Regali and the other
TMB.
Yeah,
Borrow
that's the
TMB
one.
rules.
TMB. Borrow and TMB. Yeah. So the core. Let's say that you keep a core of both from Sky Regali and maybe Rawls because now he's not IGLing anymore. But realistically, everyone said when they built this roster, they have 3 IGLs. They have players that have all recently IGL'd, and it was quite a big question mark. And don't forget, Copenhagen Flames they've just recently created an academy team, so you never know what sort of changes are going to happen there. But yeah, for me, I genuinely like the team because it has big names, but I question whether it's going to make any progress in these sort of online events because I think there needs to be an extra firepower from somewhere, and I don't think Borup can do that necessarily much anymore.
Yeah. I was going to say, if you look at this point in the cycle to the last Copenhagen Flames team as well, as Trav says, you've got probably bigger names, but I really don't see this Copenhagen Flames side living up to what Copenhagen Flames, the previous one, did. You know, the one that did make the major and whatever. So
yeah, we've spoken about it quite a bit. I think their lineup on this show.
Yeah.
If you can scroll up, Ryan, to actually have a look at the full team rosters, there are some cool ones
rosters,
that I could get into.
There you go. I'll chuck them up.
The WL Gaming Esports, a Greek team. Fuck me, I
Ooh.
cannot remember the last time I've seen Greek players or Greek teams play at any competitive level. So this is mad to see them get an invite.
This is what this is. It's a bit like everyone jokes about CCT and jokes about the you know, the regions being a bit of a mess when they give invites. But realistically, this is what these are all for. Like they're giving chances to these particular regions and these particular teams to play against some of the more well-known teams in other parts of Europe. I mean, like your Tricks and like your Havus. So I mean, Blue Jays, for example, are a stalwart in in all these CCT events.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I'm not disappointed with that sort of invite because it gives an opportunity to a brand new region, basically. New region, you know what I mean?
I was going to say as well, Alternate Attacks playing with Orzek, he's the only other Greek I see on this list, right? So,
yeah.
There you go.
I'm trying to remember. There used to be a Greek player that played on, like, Epsilon. I'm just going to have a quick look. Once upon a time. But it's not been a region that's been very strong when it comes to like that sort of scene at all.
I'd say as well, it's nice the amount of representation of the smaller regions here. I'm looking at maybe your Avan, obviously Serbian playing for Zero Tenacity. You've got your Collins. There's a fair bit of Bulgarian representation here as well. We've seen them.
Bulgarian teams as well.
Yes.
International lineups.
Need Doctor is obviously a Bulgarian team. You've got Kaluba on Partizan. You've got Red Star on Monty. And obviously you've got Xcade as well playing in this event. There's a lot of Bulgarian history and a lot of Bulgarian blood flowing through this event. Always nice to see, as you said, the Copenhagen Flames guys here. Another point is a full Belarusian team in this event as well, right?
I think we spoke about them on a previous episode when they won one of the events, one of the local events, Ryan, where it was like MDS and Box hadn't played in an official HLTV for over a year. So we might now start to see them like more often on HLTV because of that.
Obviously, Ikla's EC Kiv rebranded, right? That's
that's correct.
That's
the brand.
Reckon
Did you get the logo up?
Yeah, I can. There you go. I don't know about the logo.
Logo's interesting. I will say that.
It's like, what is this meant to be? Like a, I don't know. That's what happens like when you get electrocuted. You know, your hands do this. That's what the hands look like. But I don't know.
It's funny. Like the word Ikla just looks like that logo because it just sounds like a bit of a mess. You know, like I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. I want to see them do this group of players though. Like I wouldn't mind if they did well. I think it would be cool to see them do well because. In the end, in general, I should say, you know, Bait and EC Kiev, that sort of group of 10 players that is around that sort of Ukrainian tier 2, tier 3 scene is promising enough to do something maybe on an international scene one day.
Right, I don't know if you can put them side by side at all, but if you could bring up the North Europe Series 1 event, we're starting to see a lot of the invite teams be exactly the same.
Let me see if I can I do this? And...
If not, don't worry.
Okay, so I can.
Well, you got Blue Jays there already. Blue Jays and Trick.
Brought up the same one, right?
Have I?
Copies.
Oh yeah, I have. That's funny. North Europe, did you say?
Yeah, that looks quite similar.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, there you go. Blue Jays.
There you go. Blue Jays.
So if I like
Copenhagen Flames
down enough, is that the same?
Copenhagen Flames and Blue Jays.
There you go. So we can switch between the two a little bit. Top row, Blue Jays, Copenhagen Flames. Obviously
I see 3 so
far. Ikla.
I see 3.
Xcade number 4.
Havu
number 5. Is X in both of them as well? No, I've just seen Nine's logo and just assumed. Zero Tenacity? No. So what? We got like 4 or 5 overlapping teams here. And I'd like to just say, I don't think the scheduling matters. I think actually for these teams we've seen a lot worse scheduling wise. Like you're playing 2 best of 3s a day.
They'll be fine, but I
was going to say, Trav, and I think it's the exact same point you're about to bring up here, is you've got to remember that this whole circuit was announced on the fact that placements in tournaments would earn you points, and points would then put you through to studio events, to finals, to the big LAN at the end. How is it fair that teams are getting invites to multiple tournaments at multiple times and what have you when these points all add up to lands to studios, which is what everyone's fighting for. If we wanted to create such division through Europe, understandable, but you can't then keep ITB in a North Europe and a South Europe. You can't put Blue Jays and Copenhagen Flames in a North Europe and a South Europe. One, because they don't both exist in both regions. You pick one or the other. And for two, realistically, for Copenhagen Flames, let's say they get, I don't know the point distribution, but let's say they get top 4 in both, and that's like 100 points, right? That's double the points that they could get in the same space that a team like Titans can. I mean, obviously, they're not going to get any points because they fucking blow. But, you know, you got to look at this and you got to be like, actually, you know, you're actually rewarding bigger names by inviting them to more tournaments with bigger opportunities. And maybe,
and of course,
maybe there's going to be more clarification on how that works down the line.
I'm sure
but,
there has to be.
But right now,
there's a good point. There's a good point because
either way, they're farming money and they're farming HLTV points double the amount than other teams, and we're not even considering the circuit in general and sort of the validity of that.
It's skewed, yeah. I mean, it's a weird one. I also got to take into account that these events are all based off the Swiss stages, which then go into quarterfinal invites. So the bigger teams that have quarterfinal invites, they're just going to get the points anyway. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if they win it. So it is a bit of a joke how the point system might play out in the end. But we should see the right team. Another thing I would mention about Retro is my second point that I was going to mention alongside your very good point about it being, you know, the point system being basically fucked, is that while scheduling I think is going to be fine, playoffs are sort of played. I think for North Europe and South Europe coming up, they're all like the playoffs are all within the midst of like 3 days. Like there's one set of quarterfinals is one day, then the other set of quarterfinals is the next day. So like even the teams are gonna be fucking confused at this point. Like it's gonna be a bit wild to see. Hopefully, there's nothing that overlaps, because if there is, after I got some of my casting dates, you know, it's like I'm pretty sure I've got like North Europe in the morning on the 22nd and South Europe in the morning on the 23rd, and exactly the same like stage of the tournament. So you could have quite exactly as you say, Copenhagen Flames playing in the quarterfinal of North Europe and then playing in the quarterfinal of South Europe the next day. It's just very strange.
All right, well, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah.
I mean, again, invited teams probably going to be the strength right to the end. But, I mean, even for Fnatic Rising, they just made top 4 in advance, so they get the relegation spot. They're here at this event. Sangal just back from the RMR. I think even Nemega, mate, I don't know what's happening with Nemega. They used to be such a strong team.
Well, they announced their brand new roster, didn't they? That consisted of like the same roster as the last.
Yeah.
One thing I would add to this as well: ITB back in this event after what they showed in the last CCT event. Exciting stuff. Exciting stuff.
I mean, even for like, I would say the grindy teams, like just off the basis of the points, the grindy teams are going to do well because they're just going to enter into everyone. I don't know about Skade, like we could probably talk about it in the roster changes, but like even for them, I just can't see this being positive for the ex-Skade lot. And
no, they've lost it, haven't they, unfortunately.
Just for the Bulgarian scene as a whole, like when you think about Skade and Fiend being top 20 on HLTV and like upsetting tier 1 teams, winning events in tier 2, to now having like Name Doctor as like the #1 Bulgarian team. Like, how is that happening?
Romania's almost overtaken them in a way, but having 2 players at the major, like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a shame because I think after this RMR, I think even Punisher, the coach of Skade, tweeted out about it, or it might have been Twanu, like one of them, or Tonio, his name is, sorry, was like, all of like some of the tier 2 teams that qualified to the major, like we could beat them. And I mean, again, it's probably going to be like ego and stuff like that, but realistically a Skade and a Fiend on top form probably could have qualified to the major after seeing what this RMR was like. So the idea that both of those teams have just been scrapped now is such a shame because the potential is there.
Yeah, I mean, one of my good mates, Paladin, is like thinking about up like a what if series, right?
Okay.
And like for what teams could have been, for example, very basic one. What if Taz never got the Mercedes? You know, something like that. But in my world, I think mine is, what if Fiend made the major over Copenhagen Flames? We spoke about it just the other day, Dweg, on Twitter. What would have happened to the Bulgarian scene and the Bulgarian Counter-Strike worldwide? How many more players would have picked up the game seeing Fiend at the major with the stickers? Constant org support probably would have come in with those stickers, that sticker money as well. Like, it's a whole different raft of situations. Yeah,
does happen. It does happen to some of these teams. And that's the downside of being in tier 2, right? Is like you could just be up and down, and like you could just explode in a week, and you could also disband in a week.
There you go.
So yeah, very tough.
Let's move on, I guess, lads, to roster changes. I think it's quite fitting that we pick up on this whole Bulgarian talk and run through some roster changes. I think we are pretty pressed for time, so we'll try and just sort of roll through them as best as we can. I think first things first, probably talking about this XK team. Do you want to start with Bubble, maybe?
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, Bubble, I don't think he's ready for retirement. I think when we spoke to him in an interview, like, he was like, oh, maybe another year. He's got options. Like, he could either go to, like, an international team in EU. He's had that experience in the past. I think he's a very good in-game leader. And he's got the credibility behind him just with the teams and the results. The only problem is now, like, you can't start a Bulgarian team from scratch again. I can't think. Like,
it's going to take way too long.
Yeah, I think it is. So, yeah, maybe even see him in a coaching role might not be a bad option if he does want to go down that sort of route. I mean, he's had a ton of experience. I do feel for him because, I mean, even going on that conversation more with Fiend, I'm sure it's been like Bubble has had 7 best of 3s to win 1 to qualify for the major, and every single time he hasn't done it. That's back at the RMRs, it's back at the minors, back at like 2013, 24, like we're talking years ago, and he's always just missed that marker. And you wonder, like, has that just changed his career because of it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a sad one, isn't it? I mean, Skade, I mentioned them quite often recently after they got dropped by the organization, of course. I think it's vaguely ironic that they've kept Skade X and not the main Skade team. I wonder if they're actually going to get a new main Skade team.
Do you reckon
I'm
they
not
just
sure.
move Skade X to Skade and just
I reckon they do at this point. I really do think
anyway.
they do.
Yeah.
I reckon they do because there was a little bit of argument, wasn't there, on Twitter about the conflict of interest with Skade and Skade X playing the same thing.
I did read that Skade X were under a different company, and it was up to the Skade X team to choose the name of the Skade Norwegian roster.
Weird stuff.
Something to note as well. In that sense, I didn't even know that Skade was owned by Norwegians. I was just under the impression that it was a whole Bulgarian thing, but no, it's actually. They made Skade X afterwards to support the grassroots that they founded it.
No, it's a weird one. Like that conversation on Twitter, I think I can't remember who exactly it was. Well, it was with one of the Skade X players, and they were like, like it's under a different company name, and we have told the admins about it. But realistically, if an admin has 1% less knowledge, he's going to Google the team and see Skade links to Skade X on their website. It's on their website as a listed roster. It's got the same name. It's got the same logo. It's like realistically, it's a bit silly. So I think they should be moved to the main Skade name. But going back to my what we're actually talking about, this Skade team. It makes me sad because when I talk about them and think about them, they were the gatekeepers at the top of tier 2 for so long. Like they had that streak. What was that streak? Dweg, you're probably the sort of person to know this. They had like an overpass streak of like 15 maps or something plus.
I remember them being 30-2 on Mirage.
That's another good one.
Overpass being insanely more so for Skade, and then Fiend had a very good Mirage. So like between the two of them, they've always been the higher end of tier 2, and then obviously Skade's lasted longer than Fiend has. But
yeah,
it is a shame because they've always been a top tier 2 contender, and
it is a shame.
Yeah, it was only going to be a matter of time, I felt, until they were going to make a LAN, and then that was like it. But no, not to be. So we'll see if it keeps going. I mean, at the moment, it seems like Nicky Doctor is playing, who used to be the IGL. He's been an IGL for a very long time, but used to be the IGL on Outlaws when Cirque was there before he went over to America. Okay. So he had some credibility of once upon a time being a top IGL around top 30 level, but it's been quite a few years. So I wonder if he's still got it.
Yeah, true. Good point. I unfortunately, I think the organization dropping them might prove to be the end. It makes me sad, as I say, because if you were a team in tier 2 that could beat Skade when they were on their good run, you knew you were going somewhere. It's as simple as that. Like, it's a shame.
I've just checked for you, by the way, Travis. It was 16 in a row on Overpass.
Oh, really? So I was really close. Then, I got that then.
Yeah,
what the hell?
So something to note as well, right? It was 16 in a row. They lost to Apex, and then they won another 10 in a row afterwards.
There you go.
So there you go. What? 25, 26, and 1 on Overpass.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. They were like almost untouchable on that map for a while. It's a shame that they couldn't make it. I mean, their last true success was beating Vitality in that one of those final Pinnacle Cups, wasn't it? So that was it, really. Unfortunately for them.
All right.
Do you want to skip through a few, Dweg, here? Maybe do some of the lesser ones as well. And
Yeah, go fast, mate. Go
Yeah,
fast.
well, the first one is For the Win. Just, had that big run at conference, made it to Pro League. They've come out of Pro League and they made a roster change already. So maybe similar to Saw, they might be taking pieces back and forward. They pick up Sazka, get rid of KST, who literally just got added to the lineup, so I feel for him. EC Kiev as well with the Wii brand. They've changed a lot. So they've benched Uclot Saber, who was one of their better riflers. They've added Sensei and Jackie on trial. So now they've got 2 AWPers on the team. They parted ways with Kane, who's like one of the most experienced coaches in like all of CIS. And they've picked up Psycho, who used to play with like the Project X, Akuma lot, like those guys over there. And they've rebranded. So
Nice
we'll
smirk
see
retro.
what EC Kiev is going to be like. Maybe we could touch on some of the UK news, actually, Ryan. Moshi leaving K10, going over Temperate. We just saw them, obviously, at I-Series. What do we reckon? Do you rate it?
I mean, for Temperate, they needed a bit of an upgrade, personally speaking.
Their hand was forced, to be fair, when like, if you're going to leave the whole thing, then it's not as if it was a kick, was it?
Yeah, no. There's been a lot of UK news, actually, in terms of roster changes, because that was a big one, but you think Christ retired, right, as well? He was back-to-back Epic LAN winner, or maybe even back-to-back-to-back Epic LAN winner.
Yeah. No, I think two LANs.
No, only two, isn't it? It was Dusty and then the mix with Kai afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, really interesting to see them. Obviously, Prem's just kicking in a bit as well. I know we haven't really had the time to discuss it here.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so Premiership's back. So actually, for the UK scene, we're looking pretty good. One thing I would say though, a big shout out to ProMod yet again for taking it on. Prize pool getting decreased, even though I feel like our
that's probably not up to them though.
No, exactly. I love ProMod. They're the guys obviously that do all the production and whatever behind them. There's some really nice people, and only the love for them. But this is probably the most competitive season for UKCS we're gonna have.
Yeah, well, just to add on that, I mean, obviously for Temperate, just winning I-Series was like a massive upset up against Eco at the time. Eco then going to SOS, part ways with Extinct, which really surprised me considering how long that core 3 had been together.
Have you
But
seen where he's
him
gone?
and Tadpole,
Yeah.
well, mate, that's what I was getting into. Him and Tadpole going. They bring back Ping. They brought in Rudd, who's like a young Latvian, or I believe he's Latvian, AWPer.
Yes, he is.
So we'll see what he's like. And an Extincted Tadpole joined Blackhand, replacing Husky and Dexter. So I'm interested on the AWP role. What's going to happen there?
Yeah, that's one thing. Another thing I'd like to touch on with this Blackhand side, I was talking to Zerfa about this. Obviously, he at one point coached the at the time, what were they called? Fanbit, right? I think he was under them when they were Fanbit.
That's right. Yeah, Coalesce. Like
and he was saying that the scheduling is the reason why they're not in SOS is for scheduling issues, that they weren't around long enough. And so for Blackhand, sure, it's an upgrade in terms of the names that you get. But I mean, come on! Like, actually, now looking at the scheduling, like, is this gonna hurt Blackhand? Is it not? I don't know. I guess we'll wait and see. Some big pickups, but structurally speaking, yeah, who knows?
All right. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Any thoughts on that, Trav? I don't know how close you are to those sort of teams.
I follow it, and I see the roster changes, and I do keep on track of it because I was a big Fanbit enjoyer. I did enjoy watching them play, and they got, what was it, that ESE Advanced game where they almost beat Fours, or did they beat Fours? It was one.
They beat Fours, but they lost. They lost against the bloody Rowland and Co, didn't they?
Oh yes, of course they did. Yeah, that was a rough one. But yeah, I've known. I mean, I've seen Tadpole playing Into the Breach, for example. I always thought he was relatively okay. Just not at the level that Into the Breach were trying to push toward. And of course, if they can get Rusty and Draken, you're going to take that sort of combination and collaboration, aren't you? But yeah, I think from what I've seen and what I've read, everyone's pretty content with these choices. I think it's probably the right things to do.
Yeah. All right.
Did you see Dexter's tweet about all of that though?
I
did not see that. That went under my radar.
So I think he was like a little bit shocked that it happened. And
when he got the boot?
Yeah, and he tweeted, feel like Popov made advance been kicked. Popov then replies, He's like, why did you have to remind me, bro?
Yeah, it's good.
So
That is good.
that's the humour I saw out of that. But yeah, that is a savage little roster change, and a lot of them.
Yeah, but I mean, look, going into Prem, like we don't have to go into it massively, because again, just the time restrictions. But you've obviously got brand new look, Blackhand, new look, SOS, a slightly new look Temperate. Into the Breach hasn't changed at all. Endpoint, we're still waiting for a Core 3 UK. What have you just seen, Ryan?
On Twitter, if you just check Republic, what they've tweeted 57 minutes ago, statement: as a tournament operator, we take question of integrity very seriously as we help in develop CCT tournament circuit in CSGO. Republic has been informed about behavior of a team, Reba Unima, and immediately disqualified from ongoing tournament CCT Central Europe Series 3
What
and
team's that?
banned them. They're called Reba Unima.
Yeah, but they might just be a team that played in the quals, couldn't it?
No, but it says the Series 3. That's only just beginning,
just
isn't
from
it?
being invites and quals, I would imagine. It could just be like a qualification team, because I haven't heard of them.
Maybe.
I reckon it's a qualification team. Yeah.
I'll keep looking.
By the way,
let's keep rattling.
Go on. Just very quickly about the UK news. After watching them in Philadelphia, where does 7 AM fit in Premiership? Are they in it?
They are in it, yes.
They are in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we
That's
don't know
a
who their
valid
fifth is,
point.
do we?
No, we do, because they just announced it, but he's Swedish.
Didn't Zix have a go
Yeah,
at
but they've got
Mouse
LV
NXT?
and YZO and vacancies. So
Oh,
that's
yeah,
Core 3
you are
UK.
right. You are right. Yeah.
Didn't Zix go to Mouse NXT?
Yeah,
Yeah,
he did.
my-
M just leaked
Okay,
that
I was
before
right.
Mouse had even
It's-
made an announcement.
That was
Yeah.
funny.
It's in the brain somewhere, thankfully.
Yeah. And then you got like
Good.
one pin in there as well.
Yeah.
Even Jack's team, Zerfa's team of like Legates, like they seem to be getting on a little bit deeper. We saw them on HLTV only the other week. Shuby's team made Prem, and then obviously Nem and Timo and Lucent still holding the spot.
Yeah,
so,
we love that.
yeah.
That is the real Operation Safe spot.
like, I am proper keen for Prem this season. I always love watching Prem. Like it's always
Yeah.
great to see what these teams are going to be like, and to try and get that conference spot. So yeah. Anyway, back to the news. Tyloo, we spoke about them a little bit earlier on. Bentek gone, Attacker gone. Now Attacker's been an OG player of Tyloo. Like he's been in and out a few times, but he's been there for a very long time. They pick up Freeman, who of course has been on Tyloo before. But this Aristo player from Lord Rabbit Gaming, have you casted them at all? Because I know sometimes you do the Asia stuff, Trav.
No, I don't. I mean, the last one that I mean, he might have been on an IEC game that I did. Now I'm thinking about it, I can't remember, but I have no real, instant memory of him, to be honest.
Okay,
So
no, that's fine. All right. Eugenteam, Ryan, you'll be very familiar with those guys. Bialy parts ways with the team, so
Rest in
no
peace.
more Bialy to knife. I think was it Bialy?
No, I knifed Groovy, mate, in a tournament. So there you go. Eat shit,
well,
Groovy.
you knifed a guy that has a graffiti on an official Counter-Strike map. How do you feel?
Where's mine? I think it's the real question
Yeah.
now. Nah, only messing. For Untitled as well, like I'm really intrigued in the Polish scene. I know it's a bit of a weird one, but for the ESL Polska, right? They have the Polska Liga. I don't know when that starts. I think they have like an autumn season that's meant to be like kicking
They're in it
off,
now?
and yeah, I mean, you've got to think of the teams that we have in the Polish scene, right? In tier 2 specifically. For the overview and finals, I'm looking only the top 4
Seems
from the
like they're
online
playing
stage.
with Ponchek. So he was
Yeah.
the guy that used to play on Abbas, didn't he?
So this is the thing, right? Like Ungentium have already made a few changes. Obviously you got Pact, you got Illuminar. Not to mention that 9 aren't in here as of yet. So I think that they've got to qualify through. The Polish scene's actually really kicking off. There's a couple of changes. I think the dust has settled for the most of the time. Since that 9 roster got announced. I mean, maybe there's a second wave to come in after this Polska
There's always
season.
a wave, mate, with Polish CS.
Yeah, it's true. But I'm actually quite excited to watch some more Polish CS because there's a lot of up-and-coming Tier 2 teams, and I think the roster change you stated there only just adds to it.
Nexus, one of the teams that Zello went back to, they had that Romanian guy in there, Adam S, that was perhaps, I think he tweeted out that he was learning Romanian. He's now been kicked, so it's back to probably full Romanian once again in from Nexus. Young Ninjas finally signing Era, one of the guys that was obviously on Game
Legion?
and then
Yeah.
Nilo's come back. They've picked up a new coach, so I think they used a lot of that lineup for the last season of the Academy League, but it wasn't official or anything. So it's finally been pushed forward. Tricked benching Kier. Now, I know that Tricked aren't like a massive tier 2 team, but Kier got like a really nice farewell. He's been a part of the team for like coming up to 3 years, so
Deserved it, yeah.
yeah, that's always hard, like when you've been a part of a team for so long. But since bringing Lucky into the lineup, I thought we'd maybe see more from Tricked, but
Shame.
maybe more time. Endpoint picking up MHL. Now, I was definitely a big believer in MHL a couple of years ago when he was on AGO before he like had to take a break for studies. He's a very good AWPer. So positive week. What do you reckon?
Positive. I like this move.
Yeah.
I think because wasn't MHL on Maz NXT for a little bit as well? A little bit, or am I thinking just a little bit? So I now I'm a proponent of wanting every single Maz NXT ex player to do well after what I've seen with the current Maz main roster. Because it's just kind of fair. I feel like. Feel bad for Shane. He's the only one that's really missed out on all the fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think MHL is a good pickup. And do you guys? I mean, I'm not sure if you're even necessarily allowed to say anything if you know anything. But do you guys know exactly what's going on with Kirby right now with Endpoint?
No,
he's on personal leave. I think like
is it his personal leave?
Something personal's
Okay.
happened,
Yeah.
so he's obviously been subbed in. I think like Heavy Gods in place or whatever. But
yeah, that's right. I remember watching them in wasn't Pro League. Can't remember what event it was with Endpoint, but yeah, they had Heavy God. It might have been in Alyssa actually, where they had Heavy God in for like a couple of games. So see what they're
Right.
like there. Finest ceasing operations. I mean, one of the things it's been a long time since we've spoken about that, but they had bloody heaps of money pumped into it from like the
Monaco.
government
Yeah.
or something
Monaco,
like
yeah.
that. So I don't know what's happening there. I mean, do we see Finest staying together, knowing that they've pulled the plug? Do we expect this team to stay, or are they
Honestly,
just going to go elsewhere?
I think it really depends on how much money they want for the team. Obviously, for Hades, you've got to feel for him, right? Like being removed, now joining Finest.
Well,
basically,
he's on
all-
loan, so he'll be okay because still be getting a salary from Ents, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I guess. But for the rest of the team, then I think the bigger argument could be made that actually you look at this roster, and depending on the salary, who's going to pick them up as a team, right? Like you gotta deal with all the contractual issues with Hades now, obviously, because technically he's on loan to a team that doesn't exist anymore. So where do we stand there? Like Ent's going to want more money.
Window.
And then on top of that as well, existing salaries for these players, for Finest, they probably saw some pretty pennies in their bank accounts at one point just because they were doing so well online. So if I'm honest, I'm thinking, first of all, Finest going to be charging buyout like the buyout clauses still existing at this point in time? Are they still holding them under Finest? Depending on that scenario, then you've got to think about the salary that they want. You've got to think about the Hades situation. I think for some of these players, they're going to be considering this and going, I think there's a lot of hassle behind this team. I want to find another home. So I really don't see them sticking around as a team, in all honesty.
Okay.
I think for Hades, he can chill because obviously he's on the bench. He's just going to be collecting money anyway. And if he wants to stream, do whatever, he'll pull in numbers and get money that way. But for the rest of the team, like they've had all their financial ground just pulled from underneath them. So I don't know. I think you got to look quite quickly.
Well, look at it this way. I mean, Golden on Savage, we haven't seen him play for a little while. You know, you've got some pieces around. You know, does Golden come back in here? If Forrest is standing in, do Golden and Forrest maybe start something up, and you might grab a Twist or a Pleasant or a Kriaz and start like a similar core of the team. I'm not sure. I'd like to see them stick together, at least see what they're like in this Swedish event. Obviously, Pinnacle Cup Championship was a very good event for them. I mean, one thing that we could even transfer over is the fact that Anika's is like filling in for Entropic right now. And I think we spoke about it ages ago that he's got such a repertoire because he speaks English, he speaks Russian,
Israeli
he can
as well.
he can speak Israeli, he can IGL, he can AWP. Like he's got so much behind him. So him now going over to Entropic, Finest now ceasing operations. I don't know. I hope that they stay together, but sometimes better offers come. Like if Hades goes back into the Polish scene, is that it? Like is that just back to your roots? Like you've dropped off a cliff. You've got all the way to tier 1 and you go back in the Polish scene? Because I've got to be honest, even if he joins a team like 9, I don't see any of these Polish teams becoming tier 1 or at least high-end tier 2 for a while. So I think he's got to stay EU. If he goes back to Poland, I think that's it.
It hurts.
It
So
does.
we'll see what happens there. Ryan, should we crack into where Sunny, Oscar, Supra, LMBT are going? You reckon?
Mate.
You reckon they can get picked up?
No.
Maybe these guys go to Titans.
Oh no.
That's not a bad one. Ex Team Finest going to Titans. Like I don't know. It's not bad.
I don't know how much
Why
money
not?
Titans have got left. Probably sapping the life out of them, that team, in terms of the money that they wanted. For the players that obviously no longer on the active roster, I really don't see any of them getting bought out anytime soon.
They might go local. Like, you reckon Oscar maybe goes back to Sinners because Sinners are struggling right now. Like, even though Forzy's doing good with the orb, like I'll give him that. Maybe Sinners are thinking because we aren't doing well, we need to bring back Oscar. And then Sunny, like, we know that the Finns aren't doing that well. Does he go to a Kova or does he go to a Harvu, like somewhere like that?
It's
I don't
doable,
know.
but I don't think they're going to look anything outside of locally, and that's really going to hurt these players that they were given such a good shot with Europe, and they just haven't been getting results. Do they want to go back to these local teams and farm through the local tournaments a little bit more? It's pretty grounding to go from that, you know. Like,
I mean, even Nodius, his contract got expired as well, and I thought he was always like he missed out on the Danish shuffle, to be honest, because he was on this team. So like, you're not going to get a place on Copenhagen Flames where he was there previously. You're not going to get a space on Masonic, Ecstatic. Like, it's going to be a tough one for him to find a home right now. He might have to dip even lower.
Yeah, it's a rough one. I don't know where these guys really go from here because, of course, obviously there must be some form of buyout involved, right? As well.
You'd have to. They're not going to let him walk for free, are they?
No, like just the fact that they say that you can contact us about inquiries, like for it to fail so quickly, it sort of worries you about the future of these players. And I feel bad for someone like Supra, right? Like, he was on that original Gambit Youngsters team from the very beginning, and then they said, okay, no, we can take Hobbit. And yeah, I think he's, unfortunately, his career has taken a very deep dive, and I think he had more to give, but I'm not sure whether he'll get the chance to show it.
Yeah, maybe Supra. I mean, look, there's a lot of decent CIS teams. I think Supra, he might struggle to get a top end one, but even a bottom end like an EC Kiev or something like that, I reckon they would take him. You know, one of those like lower ends, an Omega, try and just get him back into the groove of things before he can get up the top. Eternal Fire, maybe this is something that you can talk about a bit, Trav. Parting ways with Major just after the RMR. No, not the actual Major, the in-game leader of Major, bringing Xcloud back. Now, when Ryan and we were talking about this previously, we had Xantares first IGLing, we then had Woxic IGLing, we then had Emor IGLing. You finally bring in an IGL of Major, you bench him, but yet you don't bring an IGL back.
Yeah, this is a really weird one. I also disagree with it. But I can see a way in which it can work, and I'll explain my thoughts on this one. I think Major probably has been doing very well. I think his numbers have even been quite good. I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure he puts himself in good roles, but yeah, Major. There might be some internal conflict there. I mean, I had a little conversation with someone on Twitter about how, you know, there might be some conflict dating back, you know, years, even to the Space Soldiers days, where they don't agree on the style of play that Major brings to it. They gave it another go, and a modern go, and it just didn't work. I thought the main way of improving this team was always to bring back xCloud. He was comfortable in those bad roles that Paz had. Paz was struggling in those tough roles, and xCloud made them look very easy. But obviously, they haven't removed Paz. So my thought is they put fucking Paz in Major's roles where Paz can shine. They are better roles. Paz is a quality play. He's been getting better slowly ever since he came back from Valorant. And you put xCloud back in those bad sort of Bianca roles where he shone before. xCloud was superb. I loved watching him play. He shone there. And from what I understand, Imor is going to be IGLing. Now, I don't like that one. But I understand why they've chosen Imor, because Woxic, when he IGL'd, it hurt his numbers significantly. So I can see how this can work, because don't forget, they made a Major with Calyx and xCloud and no Major, as in the player Major.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can see it work in the long term, but obviously it's a long time to wait till the next Major, so you don't know. But I genuinely do get how this can improve them, and we'll have to see it in Rotterdam to see if they can get some nice wins and create some upsets. But with xCloud back in the right roles, with Paz in a better role, IGLing is going to be an issue. But if Imor can sort it out, and overall, really the main thing that they struggled with was like main executes. I think their T defaults are relatively okay, and we know their CT side is going to be good with players like Woxic and Xantares. So yeah, it can work. I believe in it more than some people, I will say. After what I saw in Rotterdam, I thought it was quite good in the Rotterdam quals, I should say. But yeah, I think for me, it's more of a 50-50 rather than a terrible move.
Yeah, I hate it, to be honest.
That's fair. That is fair.
The thing is like, again, for xFlan's sake, I mean, I think we've spoken about it previously. We were a little bit surprised when he got benched because I think he is a very adequate player. And I do
Agreed.
like what xFlan brings to the table. But you've got to consider the idea. Eternal Fire, okay, they didn't qualify. They almost made playoffs of ESL Pro League. You've got BLAST Showdown around the corner. You've got Rotterdam around the corner. You've just bloody brought Paz and Major back from Valorant. Like, give them some time.
Yeah,
give
they
them
hadn't played a
time.
LAN
Exactly.
for like 2 years before they went to Pro League.
Give them these events. You've got the events. Like, you've qualified to a lot of them. So you've got the opportunity to get more under their belt, wait out the Christmas period, look into the new year, and if you need to make changes, then okay, I agree with it. But the idea that Major is being kicked this early when all they've been looking for since the period of this organization starting is an IGL. It's
so
gone
true.
through 3 different players at this point. You've brought an IGL, and he's the first one to get kicked. That's unreal. I don't mind xFlan coming back into the lineup, but I do
Must
not
be
like the
internal
idea of
conflict.
Major getting
It has
benched.
to be. Yeah, it has to be
So-
internal conflict. There's no other explanation for it. But I would agree with you.
And,
on that one.
if they don't do well at the showdown and they don't do well at Rotterdam, Major's going to be looking at them like, what have you done? You know, give me some more
Exactly.
time, because even if they give him 6 months and things haven't improved, you've given the project what I would call successful time window. The
Yeah,
idea that it's
agreed.
this soon, that you've just come to the RMR, I mean, the idea that he's got kicked straight away even tells me that they could have been talking about it before the RMR. He could have already been on the chopping block before the result had come in. Whether they'd made the major or not, he was going to go.
Maybe. I mean, I did read some tweets about people talking about stories that they've heard on like Turkish-speaking people that have heard Xantares talk about stuff on stream and stuff that he doesn't like about Major and ex-players and stuff like that. So I think it definitely it stems from probably some internal conflict of maybe Xantares being one of the semi-owners of the team, basically just not liking it. I think someone said even that he said on stream or something ages ago that he made one of the he sort of not co-signed, that's not how it works, but he co-agreed to be one of the players that said, okay, we need to get rid of Calix. So maybe he's now in this situation of doing the same with Major. Who knows? Speculation. And Immortal IGLing, as I said, is certainly a rough one. But yeah, either way, I think I'm hopeful because of xFL coming back and Paz being in better roles. But I think there are the negative of losing Major ever so slightly outweighs that second change.
Just the idea that they've come back from Valorant, you give them 3 months and your IGL's already kicked. Like, it's just so soon. It's so soon.
Yeah, brought back from Valorant. It was like, I think Major and Paz hadn't played a LAN before Pro League since they played on Sangal, like for like 2 years. And they hadn't played Ancient in an official since like back then either. Like, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what Eternal Fire is going to be like. Again, they've got some decent events coming up, so we'll get a bit of a tell of where they are. But yeah, Ryan. I don't know. There's a lot going on right now, and I think this is probably one of the more busier time periods of Tier 2, because there is, like, obviously the CCT stuff is going to be very overwhelming. You've got Alyssa playoffs coming up very soon. You've got the Alyssa LAN around the corner as well. Obviously, the IEM Major Rio is like the big one. But in terms of Tier 2, there's quite a lot like coming up over the next handful of weeks, like even a handful of months.
Not to mention, like, basically post-major, it's player break, right? I don't think we're going to have many events.
Tier 2, man.
Exactly that. Like, we are going to be. We are going to have a lot of roster changes during that time. We're going to have a lot of movement. We're going to have a lot coming up. And so, yeah, as much as we're going to sit here and say, yeah, there is a roster break, or rather a player break for these rosters, the rosters certainly won't be having a break. You know, people will be moving around. There'll be buyouts. There'll be changes. There'll be more things for us to learn about heading into next year, because I can guarantee you, even though we're 2 months away from the end of the year now, we are far from the end of this year when it comes to Counter-Strike and how the teams look. There's going to be a lot more for us to talk about in these roster changes. I can't wait to see what happens. I think as well as that, there's going to be a lot of upsets by the end of this year if teams aren't making your CCTs, if teams aren't performing to the levels of playoffs or main Swiss invites. There's going to be a lot of movement, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm very excited. Yeah, I agree. It was nice sharing this my first Tier 2 talk with you guys. I appreciate you having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Of course.
Chatting shit like we always do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In some
I mean, that's
sense.
the way, really. Got to rip it
Yeah.
at some points.
And we had like
There
an
you go.
equal level of good talk and shit talk, and that's what
There you go.
we're here for, you know.
Yeah.
Bring some sense, bring some sense to it. No, thank you very much, Trav, for joining us. Any final words or anything you'd like to say or shout? Or whatever?
Number 1 Benelux region.
No, even I can assure you I don't believe that. But yeah, I don't know. Follow me on Twitter at TravCS. Occasional Twitter banger, it pops up underneath there. It's whether it's by luck or by judgment, they come through. I don't know how.
Or a
let you-
Don
I'll-
Hatchie retweet.
Yeah, they
I'll
got-
let
get lucky
you,
with that.
Go and shout out the podcast of yours because I've seen it popping up on YouTube.
Of course, yes. 2.5 talent. The half talent being me, of course, because I'm short.
Yeah.
I'm only 5'4". That's the joke behind that title.
Like
I was
Ryan
very,
too,
I was happy with that. Don't worry. I gave permission for that title to be a thing. But yeah, me, Neokai, and Paladin having a nice little
boys.
chat, basically. Yeah, the boys chatting every 2 weeks usually. We just recorded one last night, so that should be coming out very soon. So
Oh, there
make
you
sure you
go.
check Neokai's YouTube for that.
There you
Alright,
go.
I'm done, Ryan. I'm out of ripping. I'm gonna have
Yeah.
to wait till the next show, I reckon.
Yeah, I reckon
Yeah.
there's more to be done, more damage to be caused. Thanks everyone for joining us. We appreciate it as always. That's us done for today. Make sure to drop a follow here on the Twitch and on the YouTube if you're watching the VOD, of course. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye bye.